Derek Overstreet, founder of the New Millennium Group. We're a financial planning firm. We have advisors standing by right now to take your call. 888-999-6370. The reason you're going to want to call is we're going to help you retire 3 to 5 years before you thought possible. The way we do this is by putting together a step-by-step plan. So if you're one of those people listening and you'd like a plan in writing, give us a call at 888-999-6370. That's 888-999-6370, or go to utahsfinancialplanner.com.
Some of the most meaningful jewelry you own isn't new. It's inherited. A ring from a grandmother, a necklace full of memories, but no longer your style. Duke's Jewelers reimagines family heirlooms into custom pieces you'll actually wear and love. Working one-on-one, Duke's designers honor the original story while creating something fresh and modern. Don't let meaningful jewelry sit unused. Let it live on beautifully. Visit Duke's Jewelers in Springville or online at dukesjewelers.com, where old stories become new treasures.
Good morning, DJ and PK back with you again on a Thursday morning, and what a night of NBA basketball. The Sacramento Kings pick up win number 20. The Jazz lose. They're stuck on 21 wins. Are they going to end up with one of the 4 worst records in the NBA? Sacramento still has to play the Pelicans and the Warriors twice, and Portland in the last game of the year. Who knows how many guys they'll be playing. It could happen. All right, well, you ponder that. Let's get to the best of the postgame show.
It's your Jazz recap here on DJ and PK 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Jake Scott with you as the Jazz lost last night to the Nuggets, 130-117. Big nights, though, for Bryce Sensabaugh, who had 28 points on 11 of 18 shooting. Kyle Filipowski with a double-double, 25 points, also grabbed 12 rebounds. Cody Williams had 9 points, but had a career-high 9 assists, but not enough as the Nuggets got 37 points from Jamal Murray and a triple-double from Nikola Jokic, 15 points, 17 boards, and 12 assists in the win for the Nuggets. So let's get to the post-game sound of Jazz head coach Will Hardy.
I don't want to bore you guys and say the same thing I've said after the last couple of games, but in general, so proud of the team. They compete, they play hard, they share the ball. Some nights certain guys play well, some nights they struggle a little bit. I thought Ace had a rough start, but I thought he bounced back in a great way and stayed the course and competed and was focused. I'm really proud of this group of guys, and you can feel it in the building, like you really can. Our fans have been incredible all season, but I also think that they're feeding off of the energy of these guys. Like, it's hard not to root for them. They really bring it every night.
Has Kyle been doing something different, or has he taken more steps forward in the last couple of months?
Kyle has had, in general, a good last couple of months. Had a little bit of a rough patch, I don't know, 5 or 6 games ago maybe. But there's 82 nights. I mean, it's hard, right? All these young players are. When you're in the rotation and you're playing a lot, you learn how hard consistency is in this league and what it takes. Kyle has been very coachable, and in no way is that the coaching staff taking credit for his success, but he has taken feedback. He's dug in and done the work in the areas where he needs to improve. And he's in a good place right now in terms of recognizing when to be aggressive. You know, the term or the phrase "be aggressive" is used by coaches a lot, and I think it's a pretty broad and sometimes reckless thing to say. Like, oh, just go be aggressive. It's like, that's not really what we mean. We mean read the game, and then when you see the opening, go be aggressive. And I think Kyle has done such a good job, especially lately, of being really disciplined. There's nothing worse for a young player than forcing it. Because usually what you do is you force it, it doesn't go your way, and then you're in a weird predicament of like, do I just back all the way off and then become non-aggressive, or do I just double down? And sometimes that can look messier. I think Kyle's in a really good place right now in terms of reading the game.
Ace has had a few games where he's had a bad first half and then bounced back in the second half, most recently in Phoenix. What do you like about his ability to stay focused at a 19-year-old age?
Yeah, I think Ace he's appropriately hard on himself. There are some of our young players who in different moments are too hard on themselves. And I think Ace recognizes when he hasn't played well, but at this point in the season, as he's matured and learned a lot, he's understanding why. It's a bad feeling when it's not going well and you don't know why. I think Ace has been able to make some adjustments because he's identifying what the problem is, and it's allowed him to stay focused.
With Kyle again, we've talked a lot this season about how hard it's been for him not having like a super defined role every night and that it changes. Kind of in layman's terms, can you say like why and what specific things have been hard in that case?
Yeah, Kyle is a big. Kyle is not a 5, but Kyle can play 5. Our 5s this season have not been healthy for a lot of the year. I mean, we lost Walker very early in the year. Lately with Nurk going down, it's forcing Kyle to play more 5 than would be desirable. I think in moments of a game or against certain matchups, Kyle can be a 5, stretch the court, change the concept that we're playing with, change how we're being guarded. But Kyle is not 30 minutes a night 5. It was nice to see him play with Oscar some tonight, and that was some of the intent there was let's give Kyle an opportunity to play his natural position for some of these minutes. And then you have to start subbing and the lineups change. But, I think that sort of covers why it's been a little bit off kilter for Kyle, but I think he's handled it really well.
You look at Ace, Kyle, Cody, Flip. All right, Kyle is Flip. But just guys.
Bryce.
Bryce, thank you. Their roles are probably going to downshift some at the beginning of next year, on paper when you guys get some guys back. How do you think their games fit kind of in a downshifted role?
I think they fit very well. I think it will be our responsibility to help all of our players, but especially the younger ones, understand what their roles are, and try to help them understand where their opportunities are. I think it calms players down when they at least can see the moments where they have opportunity. I have felt the greatest part about this stretch of the season is that, yes, they are getting more opportunity, for sure. But it's not opportunity that is based around like, hey, man, do your thing. Like, we still have 32 assists in tonight's game. So it's still within a team construct. And so the thought process there is that it can translate. There are moments where Bryce or Ace have gotten hot and you let them take a few extra dribbles because that's just what you're supposed to do. But I would do that if Lowry was on the court. If Lowry was on the court and Bryce had hit 3 in a row, like, you get to shoot the heat check. That's the way it works. So I've been really proud of the fact that the guys haven't fallen into the trap of, oh, we get all this opportunity and some of these guys aren't out here, and so I'm going to just make it about me. I think guys have had big nights and done it within the construct of a team, and we're coming in at the end of most nights with pretty high assist numbers. I think it gives it the best chance to translate. But I obviously don't know for certain.
John Conchar just seems to fill, like, whatever gap is not being filled in the game naturally. Is that something that can be coached? Do you coach him on that? Is that something he just figures out and finds?
I have coached John very little. I don't quite understand how he does what he does some nights. His ability to get deflections and his nose for the ball, his toughness, the understanding of, like, when to really, like, you see moments where, like, he really braces up and fights and uses his strength, and then moments where he pulls the chair and he's got incredible savvy. I don't know if it can be coached. I mean, John has obviously learned how to play from other coaches along the way, but there's also a part of just whatever teams you play on or environments you play in, you learn how to fit in. But I think a lot of people can take things from John when they watch him, like the way that he still impacts the game without, I mean, when I'm being serious, since he's gotten here, I don't know if I've intentionally called a play for him. I've involved him in things, but it's never really been like, hey, this is for John. And throughout the game, he has big moments of deflections, rebounds, tip outs, tip ins. He's a winning player, and we have plenty of nights where it doesn't show up on the box score. Tonight it looked like it showed up pretty well, but he's a hell of a player. Like it's nice to have kind of the Swiss Army knife type guys, because with certain lineups sometimes you just need a fourth or fifth guy that can fit in, and John does that really well.
It's Jazz head coach Will Hardy. The Jazz fall to the Nuggets 130-117. Next up, Jazz take on the Rockets on Friday night in Houston. That game will tip off at 6 o'clock. Pre-game coverage begins at 5.
There's the best of the post-game show when we come back. Tim LaComb joins us next. We're talking hoops with him. Stay with us. We're joined now by Tim LaComb, former BYU assistant on Rick Bujarus' staff at Utah as well. Now you hear him on Jazz pre-half and post. Tim, good morning.
Good morning.
We were just discussing your boy, Tommy Lloyd. What is he going to do? Is Arizona going to win it all? Is he going to bolt for North Carolina? It seems like all eyes are on him right now.
Yeah, they are. And, you know, it's one of those unique situations. I think North Carolina's at least guys around our age, and Tommy's close to my age. North Carolina carries kind of a different meaning, and obviously the Jordan brand and Jordan and everything else. So I would assume that is something that he will deal with at some point. Hold on one second.
Sha la 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 la. Let's
okay.
Today.
No, so I think, yeah, sorry. I think his his focus, like he said right now, and I buy Tommy on this. He's pretty amazing to focus on what's at hand. And will they win one? I think they look pretty poised to do so, but I would say Michigan does too. I think those two teams, in my mind, probably have the best chance. So we'll see. But I'm really excited for Tommy, having known him for 20 years, and all of a sudden he's kind of like in the epicenter of the college basketball world.
Did you go to Lukenbach, Texas last night with Willie and Waylon and the boys?
I was playing Waylon. I tried to call you. I was doing a little rambling, man. I got that one figured out. So. 2 or 3 hours alone. I'm in my guitar room, so I was trying to mess with you, PK.
I was unavailable at that moment, but I did get back with you. What do you know about Jacobson, the coach at Utah State?
I don't know him. I've met him before. I don't know him great. We played, you and I, one time. We played him out in Hawaii for the Diamond Head Invitational. One of those years, and I can tell you this: his teams. When I heard the name, I was like, "Man, that's kind of a throwback to Stu Morrill." Really, really physical, really detailed, innovative. He's a guy who is kind of on the front end of stuff, but I mean, he is a guy who has strung together 400 wins at a place that, when he walked in there, I'm sure he wondered how he's going to win one. But over a period of time has really become a name in college basketball, and it's not a name that I'd even thought of. I was kind of on the search for young guys, but it makes a lot of sense. And I see him as a guy maybe that will stick around, for a handful of years and actually kind of do it to where they can pass it off, and get a little bit more control of that. But it's worked out well for him, and I think they hired a really, really good coach, another really, really good coach that will do big things in Logan.
How important do you think it is that they got $3.9 million in buyout with the coach leaving, and then apparently spent $0 on the coach arriving? That seems like a little bit of a windfall that the Aggies ought to be able to use to their advantage in an era when the old school recruiting you went through is only important if the money is the same. And if the money's different, well, then the money tends to speak.
Yeah. I had heard rumors that at least $2.5 million of that was going to Scott Gerard. So, just in a lengthy contract a negotiation that they're finally able to pay the man.
And he deserves it, don't he?
Oh, he's got a voice of an angel. It's velvet. It's literally velvet.
With Izzo and Hurley doing their thing, as like this NCAA tournament run has been fun to watch, obviously, and then you've got the deal, a little sideline note to it. Coaching players hard, and what is acceptable? What do players want in terms of being coached hard? Because those two guys do it.
I think it's unique. We had guys that would come through and could take just about anything, and then we'd have guys that come through, and if you looked at them cross, they'd cry. So you kind of have to figure out who you got. But I think the biggest thing, guys, is especially this day and age, I think there's a relationship required. I think in order to jump into somebody, and you see, and hear that off the court, these guys are a little better at probably than in the old days. I mean, Rick would blow everybody up, and then he'd go get in a separate car, and we'd all get on the bus, and you wouldn't see him for a day, These guys go to dinner with these kids. I know that it's a big push, obviously, with this generation, too. Communication's massive, and the old school of, hey, I'll tell you when I tell you, that doesn't work anymore. And so I think these guys have done a great job. If you're going to coach kids hard, I think you got to have a great relationship. You got to build a relationship with them, one of understanding. But I found that most kids want to be coached. They want to be told. And I think the unique piece for every coach is how do you do that? Some drive it home with a hammer, and others are, more technical. So I think the key is be yourself. Don't be somebody you're not. Don't be a jerk just to be a jerk. But I have felt through my experience that at the end of the day, players, probably would even say, I wish it would have been a little harder on me, to help me recognize or realize it. Again, nothing demeaning, but just something with urgency to make them understand how important little aspects of the game are.
How long does it take a coach to drive themselves into a dead end because Bobby Knight had that reputation for a long time, and it was probably well earned, and he won for a long time, but then eventually it just ran its course, and good players didn't want to play for him, and they were going other places. And I've seen Izzo interviewed enough that I feel like I can see that other side to his personality. If he goes crazy during a game, I think I've seen other stuff too. I haven't seen that so much with like Cronin at UCLA or Hurley. Hurley's won so much, I suppose he probably has it. Do you think any of these coaches have a shorter shelf life?
Man, that's a great question. I think you can do a lot of things, and I will quote one of my good friends in coaching. Told me this a long time ago. He said they will forgive just about everything, but they will not forgive losing. I mean, and if you look at the pattern, when Rick was here, he was the mayor of the city and having dinner with billionaires and living the high life. And, the minute they stopped winning, what became way more vocal was his treatment of players. You didn't hear about, because I promise you, he was the same dude when I was there with Andre and Keith. And to his credit, he was harder on Keith, one of our best players, than he was on just about anybody, and that's rare. But I think when you stop winning, if Hurley stops winning, nobody's putting up with his charade or his antics. And I think that's the great differentiator. You stop winning at a high level, and people stop buying your game.
Understood, and that's a fact. We're talking about the effects of A.J. DeBonsa on BYU, and was it worth it? We think absolutely it was, for all the things that he has the opportunity to influence the program for years to come. What's your take?
Not just yes, but hell yes. That was I ask people this all the time. What would it have cost to get a full, a banner ad in Times Square? Just that alone, with a BYU mark on it. And I think the AJ thing worked great. I find it funny that people, ripped that it didn't work. I mean, there were a lot of reasons that it didn't work, and I think it would have have worked better had Richie Saunders been around to see the end of the season for sure. But when you start talking about, I don't think people quite understand how hard it is to get a high-level player like that, to come and say yes to your place. And people will throw, and DJ, you said it, money is a factor. There's zero doubt about it. If you're not in the game money-wise, if you're not near, it's almost like bidding on a house. You got to be in that. You got to be in that little area that is acceptable. And then you'll be brought in to negotiate, and you'll talk, and I'm sure you work against other teams. But how hard it is to get a guy like that, who will be the first player in the draft and should be. I mean, after watching all of this, there is nobody that I've seen that acclimates as well to the pro game. And then when you compound that 2 years in a row now with two guys that have come in here sight unseen, no understanding other than recruiting of what BYU is. And to go through the season, Yegor got drafted, and then not only got drafted, but he's had a good year. His future in the league looks to be something that, is a little more certain than when you first get drafted. You just don't know a lot of the variables. But to get 2 first-round picks, 2 very, very highly sought-after players to come to Provo, Utah 2 years in a row, and then follow that up with another one, I think the process is now figuring out how you build around that guy. And you may not get it perfect the first time, but the reps are really important. Getting guys to say yes, come and figure it out. And I do think there are some things they can work on in the reps, and I've seen names in the portal that I would assume BYU is going to be involved in that make sense to them. Even local guys that have again, can help build that backbone that BYU should have of development players. And so I think it has been not just, great. I think it's been program changing in a lot of ways. When they show 4 schools that have offered these big players, and BYU is one of those logos with, the Dark Lords of Kentucky and the Blue Bloods in North Carolina. And you see all those names in BYU's logo there. Some major stuff has changed. So to isolate it, to say, BYU didn't win the league and they didn't win a conference tournament game, you're way behind the race, because there's another kid coming in next year and they're going to build around him better. And KY's a hell of a coach. I mean, there's just no two ways about it. So, yes, that was a long-winded answer, but I wanted to explain why.
Sure.
Okay.
AJ was perfect for this, and it will continue. BYU, when Kevin said it the very first press conference and people in that room looked around cross-eyed like, what is he talking about? Mm-hmm. We're going to bring pros here? Well, he's doing it. He's done it. He's had success doing it, and it'll continue.
Let's dive a little deeper into putting a better team around the next star and the star after that. As you look at this tournament, Illinois clearly leans on some foreign talent. Is that the way to go? Duke has leaned on multiple young pros, but their team's been really young, and freshmen have had turnovers in big points in key games. I mean, they've gone Elite Eight and Final Four. They haven't been terrible, but they want the big prize and they haven't gotten that. The get old, stay old. UConn probably has fewer pros, but they probably got an older roster too. How would you build a team going forward? What's the best path? Or is it just get it right? You can commit to any of these paths, but you got to have the right guys when you commit to the path.
Well, I think it's a little bit of that, DJ. But I will say that I think the get it right piece, is not like building a Lego tower, where there's 40 pieces sitting there and all you have to do is plug them in. There's a lot of searching involved. And, I used to laugh because at the time, Travis Hansen, who's now one of the guys at BYU, he would always go public while we were there. They need to recruit Europe more and all this stuff. And yeah, I mean, look, I don't care where you go, but you need to find players. And at the time, any European player of value at that time came over here with 2 things, a backpack and their handout. Because if you're going to bring a European player, there was a lot to it. And there was not just, hey, do you want a scholarship? Okay, here's the honor code. Sign that. Okay, it looks like we're good there. Let me stamp your ecclesiastical form. Okay. And where did you say you're from? Oh, Russia. Okay. There's just so much to it. And we couldn't, navigate that in the old world. And people would always why don't you recruit Europe more? And I didn't want to come out and say, well, because everybody else is recruiting Europe and bringing European players here, paying them. So would you like us to do that? These high-level Sabonuses and things like that. So, again, I don't care where you get them, but the beauty part now is BYU has there's no walls around anything. And I think they do have really great knowledge. Justin Young, he knows players. He knows where they are and who they are and how to get to them. So, yeah, it's just about getting it right. It's about getting the right guys, the right chemistry. I loved how AJ's demeanor changed over the year. I know Kevin really coached that up. But guys that are coachable, guys that aren't going to look at you and say, no, I'm only here for 8 months. And I think that's what I've seen over the last couple of years at BYU with Mark and with Kevin is, you don't want to bring in mercenaries. I wouldn't bring a guy in here that's just going to be okay for 8 months. It just doesn't make any sense. So that's why in my mind, you go get a guy who really wants to be here, can play, maybe not play as good as that guy, but in 2 years and learning your vocabulary and practicing with you and pushing your other players. I just think there's so much value in that.
Okay, so I'm a little confused, Tim. Are you talking about maybe back off the high-level guy and spread the money out instead of paying one guy a whole lot?
No. I'm saying, get your high-level guy, but I'm saying in the other positions, like your Kennard Davis guys or your, the big they signed from the G League for 5 months, or just those guys, just mercenary guys that are here for one reason. They're here to just play ball. And make it bigger than that. Bring guys in and they're here to play ball and help your team get better. And if they don't play, that they're not going to destroy things. Or, like the Catchings kid last year, that was worth a try because he's a young kid. But, that's a long-winded answer from a coach who did it a long time. But I do think the key to it is get it right. And get it right that's not a given. BYU had a much better team beginning this year than they did at the end because of injury. And I do believe Dawson Baker and Richie Saunders would have made a world of difference if they would have been healthy.
What about the theory that if you're not going to get outbid, go get 3 pros? And that's what Arizona and Duke are doing. Arizona's not, as PK brought this up earlier, Arizona's not get old, stay old. Arizona's get several high-level young guys and then sprinkle a couple veterans around them.
Hey, yeah, absolutely. And if that is something from a perspective of spending that they can do, again, there's all sorts of ways to do it. But I do think any of the ways that you do it, particularly at BYU, I think the hidden gem is you can really build a squad that comes in with the ability to play, but over a period of time, like we saw time and time again. And Jim Fredette came in as a 2-star player, and he finished as the best player in college basketball. And so that's kind of what you try to bet on is some of these guys that maybe don't have the lineage, the name, the recruiting prowess, but, man, they want to come to BYU in the worst way, and they'll work to get better.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that. That makes sense. That's what BYU basically was built on, but the world is different now. You wonder even if those guys, Dallin Hall left. I'm not saying it was a wrong decision by any stretch, but in the old days, would he have stayed and just felt like, okay, I'm a senior, I don't want to sit out, and so, I'll find my way to work, make sure I get playing time. And obviously with the injuries, he would end up at as much playing time as he could have handled, but he didn't know that at the time. I just wonder if the world is so different, how possible that is. I agree with what you're saying, but I wonder if it can actually be accomplished.
Yeah, it is definitely something to kick around. But if all else fails, man, the one piece that is real is BYU's opened, their doors in a big way the last few years to high-level athletes, both, football, basketball players that, again, one point in time, BYU couldn't even get in the front room. So it's big, and now, you just continue to tweak it. But I would say 2 years, 2 tournaments, and 2 wins in 2 years in the tournament. That's a really good start for Kevin, and it'll only continue to get better. I really do believe that.
There's Tim LaComb. When we come back, Mitch Harper talking BYU spring football next.
Make game day yours. Tickets, food and drinks, stats, and streaming. Everything you need is in the Utah Mammoth app. Download today and make game night easy. Download on both Android and iPhone. Tusk Top.
I'm here on the job site with Dale, who's a framing contractor.
Hey, good morning.
Dale traded up to Geico Commercial Auto Insurance for all his business vehicles. We're here where he needs us most.
Yep, they sure are.
We make it easy for him to save on all his insurance needs, all in one place, with coverage that fits his business and bottom line. Oh, I shouldn't have looked down.
It's all right.
We're so far up here.
Look at me. Take a deep breath.
No, I'm good. So good.
Get a commercial auto insurance quote today at geico.com and see how much you could save. It feels good to Geico.
I sold my car in Carvana last night.
Well, that's cool.
No, you don't understand. It went perfectly. Real offer, down to the penny. They're picking it up tomorrow. Nothing went wrong.
So, what's the problem?
That is the problem. Nothing in my life goes as smoothly. I'm waiting for the catch.
Maybe there's no catch.
That's exactly what a catch would want me to think.
Wow, you need to relax.
I need to knock on wood. Do we have wood? Is this table wood?
I think it's laminate.
Okay, yeah, that's good. That's close enough.
Car selling without a catch. Sell your car today on Carvana. Pickup fees may apply.
All right, we got Mitch Harper joining us now, insider covering BYU for KSLSports.com. Mitch, good morning.
Hey, good morning, DJ. Happy to be on.
Mitch, we all want the dirt. What is the coolest, juiciest morsel you've heard so far? What's the best thing about spring ball?
That is a great question. I would say, the juiciest thing would probably be maybe some of the changes that you're seeing with some of these with Kelly Papinga's defense. Most notably, probably the edge rushers maybe morphing more into outside backers. You're seeing like a Hunter Clegg kind of take on that hybrid role. And look, last year he was more of a bull rusher, kind of in the mold of a Tyler Batty. Clegg's leaned out a little bit. He's going to be more of that guy that you saw last year with Nusi Talmoy Payout, more of those type of body types. And I think that's something that's been a notable change in Kelly Papinga's defense because, again, you're trying to identify what are the big changes between Jay Hill and Kelly Papinga and K-Pop with his background with Bronco Mendenhall and the successes that he's had with linebackers, Fred Warner, Kyle Vanoy, they love the, pass rushing linebackers from his time with Bronco. And a lot of those guys are kind of morphing into that. But, it's been kind of a ho-hum spring ball, to be quite honest. And I think another aspect, though, is that Bear Bachmeier, is earning rave reviews. And I think that's something that's important for BYU, that he continues to take steps forward. But, yeah, pretty much, ho-hum spring for BYU.
You would think that maybe with the loss of Jack Kelly that it would take a hit at the linebacker spot because obviously he's really good and he was fun to watch. But they got a couple of transfers in combined with the returners that I can argue that the position is even going to be better than last year, right?
I think so. I think that, Kedu Luave steps right in and is one of the top guys on the team and a leader of that team for sure, from coming in from Cal. And, Glasgow, when he gets fully healthy and he returns in fall, he'll be really good. And, someone that's really trending up in spring ball has been Miles Hall. He was someone that played 2 years ago in relief of Harrison Taggart late in the season. If you remember, 2 years ago when BYU was undefeated, I think it was that Kansas game, and he stepped in and also played against Arizona State. Didn't really see much time last year, but he's someone I think that's expected to take a big jump this year. And you still got, an Ephraim Asiat, if they can figure out, really what to do with him and really find if he can be an every down type of guy if asked upon. But they've got options. They've got depth, and linebacker's always been a position that BYU has had success with. And then you got these, hybrid guys like a Braxton Lindsey, too, who's a former 4-star recruit, pick BYU over Oklahoma and so just things like that. I mean, I think that's one of the big things that catches my attention with this team is that it probably is, you've got the probably the deepest team that Kalani's had since he, took over the program in 2016. But I think more notably is that you've got, second, third string guys that look every bit the part of what a starter could have looked like years ago for BYU. And I think that's just something that's kind of caught my attention, the body types, the measurables, the cliches, but they really do have a lot of talent. And even Fesi Sitake told me with, the wide receiver position is that they feel confident that they've got 12 guys that could play, and he wants to see the best emerge in this spring ball. And that's where you're seeing, a lot of buzz for a true freshman, Legend Glasgow, getting run. So they feel like anyone that steps foot into the program, they're expected to contribute right away. Whereas before, the thought early in Kalani's tenure was sign them, send them on a mission, then gray shirt them, then red shirt them. And 4 years have gone by and you haven't seen these guys do a thing. And then you think, well, that was a recruiting mess. Those guys have done nothing. And a lot of the players that were in their same recruiting cycle have already moved on in other programs. So I think their numbers are in a great spot. And that's creating this situation where they feel really good about the depth and linebackers at near the top of the strengths of this team in 2026.
So let's go in the other direction. What position group would be at the bottom as far as depth, and where might there be a little nerves of, if there's injuries here? What position group would that be, and why is it running back?
I think it's definitely running back. I think that spot is cause for concern after LJ Martin. I think Sione Moa, the fact that he's competing and he's been going through all the team portions of practice, I think that's been significant because there was even questions going into spring if he was going to be able to go. He told me that he probably shouldn't have played in the Big 12 championship game last December, that was too soon from his injury with the compartment syndrome. I mean, again, that was just significant stuff. And the fact that he's playing and that they still believed in him and that he's worked his way back, I think that's significant because if he's healthy, he can be a valuable RB2. He's probably a more dynamic, just overall athlete than maybe even LJ, but LJ is just so productive and he's going to be an elite player for BYU this year. But after that, I think there's a lot of questions at that running back spot. Devon Eka, another true freshman from Lehigh, he'll be probably in the mix as well. But I think on another position that's kind of thin a little bit is cornerback. They've got Evan Johnson and Trey Alexander. The third cornerback is probably, Mississippi State transfer Javen Williams. Javen Williams is interesting. He said that Kalani Sitake was really involved in his recruitment out of the portal to come into BYU, which kind of a different commentary than usual for BYU transfers. Kalani was heavily involved in that one, but I think that's the spot where if Johnson or Alexander go down, I think that one could get kind of thin too. They like some of the young guys, but again, everyone behind those two pretty much unproven, and that's a little bit concerning at that spot.
Who's backing up the Grizzly Bear at quarterback?
I'd expect it's Trayson Bourget, but I'll admit, Aaron Roderick still doesn't just emphatically say it. It kind of leaves the door open, which is kind of interesting commentary when he was asked about that backup spot between Trayson Bourget and Enoch Watson. There's no spring portal anymore, A-Rod, so just no one can poach your guys. And look, maybe someone can always find a roundabout way to get out and leave a team, but
yep.
but
didn't he address
Trayson
that?
Bourget.
I think he addressed that at the very first availability he had. Obviously Jake Retzlaff, he found a path. So there's no portal in a formal sense, but there is a way. If there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah, there always is. The walk-on side of things, you can always find some sort of path, even though the NCAA seems to be trying to have a shallow attempt to try to threaten, we'll take away budgets and football, suspend coaches for 6 games or something. So we'll see if that can actually work. But Bourget is probably the guy. I do think Enoch Watson from Arizona, the true freshman, is interesting. he's got a really good arm, and I think as far as maybe give you more confidence as playmaking ability, I think you'd like Watson a little bit more. But I think Bourguet is probably the safer bet because if you did have to turn to that QB2, I think Bourguet's, he's done a nice job with the offense. He knows the offense. And he was someone, too, that as far as a recruit, I mean, his dad is like one of the founders of 7-on-7 football. It's a football family down in Arizona, the Bourguets. And I think he'd be a solid player for BYU. But it's just been interesting because A-Rod has never committed to saying like Bourguet is number 2. In fact, when he was a high school recruit, BYU really didn't commit to him. They kind of backed off. He was heavily interested in BYU as a recruit. Instead, he goes and gets a scholarship at Western Michigan, and then he goes into the portal and picks BYU as a walk-on. This guy loves BYU, and I don't think you just reward someone because he's always shown up and wants to be there. But I think that he would be okay. He's going into his 3rd year in the program, and I think he's probably the guy that you'd turn to because of that knowledge of the offense, probably give him the QB2 nod.
Switching a little bit to basketball, Mitch, the transfer portal is still a few days away from being open, but we've seen guys put their names out there, players at Utah and Utah State, but we haven't heard anybody from BYU. Have any idea what might happen?
Yeah, that's to me going to be really interesting with BYU in the portal, and I think it's been noteworthy that they haven't had any sort of declarations that they've intended to go to the portal. I'd look at guys like a Dominique Diamande, a Tyler Moross, Bidou Ahmed, coin flip guys. Like, how does the coaching staff view them, and do those guys want a bigger role? I think BYU wants to have retention. I mean, that has been a calling card with the football program. I think Kevin Young wants that too, to just kind of build off of, some of the successes that this team had. But again, they got to upgrade that bench, and in particular, they got to get more size, and they got to have more shooters. I think that the size, though, is going to be critical for this BYU team because they just really had no offensive firepower with Keita, Bidou Ahmed. Staten never played. He was dealing with a knee injury, and he's someone, too, that I would lump in that bucket of how does the coaching staff view him? How does he view his role going forward as these exit interviews continue? We'll say, though, these guys have been I think many of them want to be at BYU. I don't think it's a case of this locker room was disjointed or anything like that or issues from that standpoint. I think this was a team that liked each other, like being, teammates with one another. I think it's just kind of a situation of, does this coaching staff's views of this player align with what they want to reach in the sport? Are they patient enough too? Because also with the rev share, even though many teams are blowing past the, rev share allotments with the College Sports Commission, BYU is still going to try to adhere to rules as much as they can. Like, they're going to find ways to get a heavily resourced roster, but still, I think they're going to try to play within the confines of that rev share budget. So by that sense, this is the first true portal cycle where that's in play. Last year, it was forecasted what the rev share allotment was going to be, but it was never in place. This is the first offseason where that's a thing. So that could cause maybe the total allotment designated to the roster being a little bit less than what it was last season with a star like AJ on board.
Yeah, that doesn't that make you a little nervous though? I mean, and there's probably 3 groups of schools here. There's a group of schools that's going to blow right by that number. They are going to blow right by it. It's not a rule. They didn't sign the agreement. They're not living by it. We want to win. We're going to spend more money. That's one group of schools. There's a group of schools that doesn't have the money. So of course they're going to say they're going to live by it because you're in the Big Sky or the Big West, whoever, you don't have the money. But for the schools that could have the money, that's a little risky to say we're going to play by these rules when you know full well you're going to be on the court competing with teams that are not playing by those rules. I get why you want to say that and you want to be the school that follows the rules, but it looks like you're putting yourself at a massive disadvantage. And if people didn't sign the rules, it doesn't feel like they're cheating. They looked at us, no, I don't want to do it. They were up front. Can you really play by a different set of rules than the other power brokers when you want to be one of the power brokers?
Well, then that's where you find the those NIL, donors to find a lucrative NIL deal to kind of, build up the total budget. But from the rev share perspective, that's where it, gets a little bit cloudy,
Okay,
a little
but if
bit
you
of a
have the
gray
NIL
area for BYU.
But the total spend then could go through the roof because you're covering it with NIL, which is what I assume the top of the Big Ten and the top of the Big 12 and the top of the SEC are all going to do in basketball.
No question. I think that's where this is a little bit of a different offseason from the roster building, because a lot of that, roster construction, football and basketball, you saw, even with football, some commits making their declarations known before, I think it was June 1st, or that was kind of like when the rev share went into effect. So a lot of players were committing early.
So if you just had to guess, counting recruits, how many new guys do you think would be on the team next season?
I'd say, so let's say you look at, you got Bruce Branch, he's coming in, and then you've also got Dean Rickard also arriving. Those will be 2 high school players. I think from there, you focus solely on the portal. I think you get to about 6 guys. I think you need, about 4 portal guys to step right in and contribute. And, I think that's because you watched last night too with the McDonald's All-American game with Bruce Branch. He showed some flashes. He's a talented player, but I don't think anyone in this freshman class for this cycle pops the same way like Darren Peterson, AJ, Cameron Boozer did with the McDonald's All-American game last year. There was no one that just said, wow, this guy's going to take over college basketball like those guys. You just felt like they had that ability in them from day one to be carrying the program. Bruce Branch is only 17 years old. He's not going to be asked the same expectations I would expect as AJ was. Now, could he be an NBA guy? Absolutely. I mean, the body type is tailor-made for the type of guys that Kevin Young works great with. Catch and shoot guys that love to get on the glass and rebound and are good passers. I mean, Kevin Young thrives with those type of athletes, and he's going to be an NBA guy one day, but they need some, bona fide college stars, and that's where you go into the portal. Ideally, guys that can shoot, and those are everyone's coveting those guys that are big guys that can shoot the basketball and extend out defenses. So I think, though, that's where BYU, the thing about them is that with their staff, they have a recruiting department where they are throughout an entire season. If a certain player hits the portal, they're going to identify and target that guy. They build out a board of kind of their potential, portal targets, as many of these Power 4 programs. So there's a strategy. And when those names hit the portal, April 7th officially, then it's go time. But as we know, I mean, behind the scenes, it's all, coming together right now to the point where I wouldn't be shocked if we see moves happening, like 12:01 a.m. on April 7th, like we did back in the day with NBA free agency. Yeah. So it could be pretty wild, I would expect.
Kevin talked about shooting, shooting's a priority. He said that at the NCAA tournament. That was his immediate reaction. But when he steps back more and he looks at the whole season, looks at all the numbers, is he going to emphasize defense more? Because I'm seeing I get the defensive rating numbers in front of me. Arizona, Houston, Iowa State, all top 10 in the country. They're elite teams. BYU is 9th in the conference in defensive rating, and I think it's like 59th nationally. Like, they have got to get better defensively if they're going to get where they want to go. I totally believe that. I haven't heard him talk about it. It doesn't mean he isn't prioritizing it. What do you know? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think offense is always going to be priority number one, I think, for Kevin Young. And honestly, I mean, I think that if BYU could somehow, with an adjusted efficiency defense, in those advanced metrics, maybe get top 25, that would be a perfect world. But I think ultimately still, you got to put the ball in the hole. Like even that Arizona game in the Sweet 16 against Arkansas, they gave up more than 80, but they put up 109. And BYU's, I think, they feel like personnel-wise this past year, they had that type of team. And even with their squad that reached the Sweet 16, they gave up 110. I think this year's team did get better in certain stretches defensively in the non-conference in particular than that first year under Kevin Young. But I think, in the latter stages of Big 12 play and in the postseason, it became a mess. And I think what was frustrating, I think, this year for this year too, was just the they just seemed confused the entire season. Even in the NCAA tournament against Texas, there were just these defensive lapses that you would have thought would be happening in November, and it's happening with the season on the line. I think that defense will obviously they feel optimistic they can be better on that end, but I think still Kevin Young, his DNA is offense, and BYU is always going to be wired to be elite on the offensive end. And even though I don't think their offense was necessarily better this year, the way it was operating because of so much on ISO and relying on age, and they weren't spreading it around like they did in year one as much because they just didn't have the guys that consistently rely on. But I think that's just kind of who Kevin Young is. He's going to field teams that have a starting, where they could be a top 10 offense. And then defense, if they could get, have a breakthrough year where it's, top 25, top 30 in advanced metrics, then they're playing with something. They could make a run and go do the thing. But I think, having a little bit more fit size would help that cause naturally to pair up with what should always be a good offensive attack under Kevin Young.
There's Mitch Harper. What is trending? The headlines are coming up next.
Hey, sweetie, your mother showed me this Carvana thing for selling the car. I'm going to give it a try. Wish me luck. Me again. I put in the license plate. It gave me an offer. Unbelievable. Okay, I accepted the offer. They're picking it up Tuesday from the driveway. I haven't even left my chair. It's done. The car's gone. I'm holding a check. Anyway, Carvana, give it a whirl. Love ya.
So good, you'll want to leave a voicemail about it. Sell your car today on Carvana. Pickup fees may apply.
It's time to get your morning started with the news you need to know. News update. This is what's trending with DJ and PK. Hashtag Utah Jazz.
Well, PK, the Utah Jazz did it. They got themselves beat by the Denver Nuggets. Jamal Murray picked up right where he left off, hit 3 3-pointers right out of the gate, hit a half-court shot, and away they went. Not a lot of defense in that game, but in the end, the Nuggets got the win.
Yeah, I think the big story is Toronto lost to the Kings, not that the Jazz lost to the Nuggets. I mean, I don't have anything to say about that game. It's now that the Kings are only one game separated from the Jazz. Can the Jazz do it? Can they lose out? And can the Kings maybe win one or two? Oh, man, this is a race to the end there that could make a difference. Maybe not. You never know. We can get all excited about this, and then the lottery can go whichever way it goes. And so who knows what that's going to mean. So I can't really say that it does. We're just going probability right now.
The team in the 5th spot moves to the top spot. And you're like, what are we doing in number 4? We should have been in number 5. That could happen.
So we can go crazy on this, and it might not make a lick of a difference.
Yeah. The Kings get the win, and they have a schedule that is set up. We can get into this, but they've got the back-to-back with the Warriors. They could easily pick up a win there. They've got Portland the last night of the season. That's a winnable game. They might even win their next one and post consecutive victories. That is a possibility with the Pelicans coming up. So they've got 4
you are my
in the last
guy.
5.
I just thought, I'm not even going to bother to look up the Kings' schedule because I know you are.
Yeah,
so I have no idea. I didn't look up any. I have no clue when they play, who they play, but I knew you would. And so only one of us needs to know it, and that's you.
And we're covered. They're sitting on the Kings are sitting on 20 wins right now, and the Jazz are on 21. So you can watch the Kings closely, see what they do. And the Jazz do have a couple winnable games out there. They got to play New Orleans also, and they got to play Memphis. You never know on any given night. You might accidentally win, but they're working pretty hard at losing, and they're doing a good job of it. So that was a winnable game going to the 4th quarter, but they lost the 4th quarter, and they lost 130-117, and they pick up defeat number 56. DJ and PK.
Hashtag NBA.
Well, the biggest game in the NBA for the Jazz was that Kings loss. The other games that may or may not have mattered, the Wizards are stuck on 17 wins. They got blown out by the Sixers, 153-131. When you see somebody score 153 points, PK, at that point, when they get around 150, do you think you're even watching basketball anymore? I mean, there's just no defense whatsoever. 150, that's like an all-star game total we used to complain about. And the Celtics had a 53-point first quarter and beat the Heat 147-129. It's just guys going up and down taking shots. first available shot, which usually comes available pretty quickly.
Well, we were talking about this a couple weeks back when, I guess last week, the scoring, I think, has really gone up of late. I don't have any particular reason why. I guess teams aren't interested in playing in defense, and maybe they're trying to make a statement that there's too many games. I don't know. I mean,
yeah.
It's not going to matter come playoff time, so what's the point of worrying about it now?
Yeah. Well, one of the teams that did it, the Pacers with 145, they're not going to be in the playoffs. So, but 3 teams at 145 or more. All right, DJ and PK.
Hashtag college basketball.
The BYU women's basketball team gets beat by Columbia in the finals of the WBIT. No trophy. They don't get to hoist it, PK. Shut out at the very end.
Yeah, they could make threes. They were struggling in that area.
Yeah. We got Ken Pomeroy coming up later this morning. We'll talk college basketball with him. The big news in the Big 12. Kansas coach. They're going to keep Bill Self's returning for next season. He briefly talked to he got to ask, what are you going to do? I got to get away from the emotion of the season and think about it. Well, he's thought about it, and he's coming back next year. So there you go.
Yeah, I think that's great for the Big 12 because when you have a lame duck coach, you normally don't do well. And why would I want to go there? I realize college basketball is only 1 year, but I don't think kids go into it, I'll just be here, and in March I'm out the door. And Self now is basically saying, I'm on a year-to-year basis. Maybe this is it, maybe it's not. So do I want to go to a remote place like Lawrence, Kansas, and play? And I don't know what's going to happen. I'm volunteering that it's only going to be 1 year, and I don't think that that's the case. I think this is actually going to downtrend to Kansas until he decides, okay, I'm going to be here for the next few years or not. I'll be here as long as you want, because we were talking about Nick Saban. That was one of the reasons he said he stepped aside, as people were asking him, are you going to be here my 4 years? And I got to the point where I couldn't say yes, and so he leaves. I think that's the same thing here with Kansas. I think it's going to hurt them. Having him return like this in a public circumstance where he clearly, obviously debated leaving is going to hurt the program.
He's had health issues. I think he missed a game coaching this year because of them. He kind of stayed unspecified, but he's dropped some weight, but the health issues have been there, and he's in an age where you can retire. So is Tom Izzo, and he came out at the age of 71 and said he talked seriously with Matt Ishbia, former player of his, about taking the Suns job a year ago, decided not to. Said he's had other interests from the Hawks and the Cavaliers in the past. But he remains instead focused on a second national title. Not sure I could see Izzo in the pros, but I guess I almost did.
Well, I don't see him
talk about
getting a second national title. Because the fact is, too, he's on a year-to-year basis, and he's 71, 72 years old. And with that, and I realize Pitino is defying it, but Pitino just signed a deal and going to be there a little bit longer. I just think when you get up there and you start going on the year-to-year and you start talking about these things, that people assume that you're a short-timer and it hurts your program.
DJ and PK.
Hashtag NFL.
Puka Nakua's attorney says that the Rams wide receiver is now in rehab. Apparently has been for a little while and will continue to stay there. There's a lawsuit filed against him alleging that he made an unprovoked anti-Semitic statement. He was in rehab, according to his lawyer, a substantial period of time before any of these allegations broke. He's scheduled to be there for a while longer. PK, you talked about this yesterday. Addiction issues are hard. A lot of people have them. If you haven't been through it, it's hard to understand exactly what it is. But I think we all, if we look around, probably know people who've been in this situation. And all you hear about is how difficult it is. And we were talking about this with Tiger Woods yesterday, and here is a similar issue with Puka Nakua today.
Well, as a young kid, he's sort of maybe happy-go-lucky in that way. He always seemed to be, at least from my interactions and watching him. And maybe I don't know the situation, so it's impossible for me to say. It's just you hope that he starts making choices that will lead to success in his life.
DJ and PK.
Hashtag college football.
PK coaches in the news in the offseason. Dabo Swinney is in the news. Yak, tell everybody the headline you saw that triggered this.
Well, this is a reply from Pete Golding. Remember that Dabo Swinney went after him over the linebacker that they took off of Clemson's roster. Well, Pete Golding says there's two sides to every story and essentially is refuting everything that Dabo Swinney has said. And then we also haven't had a judgment from the NCAA on this at all.
It's all about tampering. Your favorite topic, PK, tampering. There's two sides to every story, Golding says. It's just funny because Dabo didn't want to get into the whole transfer portal thing, and now he's landing a linebacker from Cal. As soon as he does, he's hearing about tampering talk. And he was like one of the last coaches to the transfer portal. He resisted it at all costs.
Yeah, I think we need to say who Pete Golding is. I assume most folks aren't going to know who Pete Golding is.
I did mention he's Ole Miss's coach.
Yeah, he is.
All right, DJ and PK.
Hashtag Major League Baseball.
Well, PK, we had a complete game shutout. Old school style. Sandy Alcantara for the Marlins. 93 pitches. He goes the distance. You don't see that every day. You don't see that every week. Seems like it's a once a month or once every couple weeks occurrence these days.
Well, yeah, not anymore, that's for sure.
Yeah. But he goes the distance. The Marlins beat the White Sox 10-0. You can put an asterisk next to it because it's the White Sox and they've been terrible and look like they're off to a terrible start. We'll see if they're actually terrible. We'll see.
You're a standings guy. Is there an asterisk next to it?
Not yet, but maybe in your mind, you will resist.
And I will resist what?
Going with the flow.
I don't follow you. I mean,
I didn't see
where are you going?
Put an asterisk on it because he beat a terrible team.
No.
Shut out a terrible team. Some teams get shutouts on a regular.
You put a piece of lumber in a man's hand, what is he?
He's a lumberjack.
He's dangerous.
Oh, okay.
And they put 27 of them, had a piece of lumber in a man's hand.
And they were dangerous.
And he's dangerous. So anybody could do anything at any time in the big leagues. So it counts just as much as anybody else's.
Yankees get shutouts on a semi-regular basis. They didn't get one yesterday. They beat the Mariners 5-3, but shutouts in 3 of their first 6 games. Still haven't given up a home run. Yankee pitching has been outstanding here early. They pick up another win. Beat Seattle and improved to 5-1 on the year. DJ and PK.
Hashtag golf.
It's the Valero Texas Open, and each week now, PK, I find myself thinking, is this the last time we're going to see this tournament? Is this one of the tournaments they're dumping? Or are they going to stay with the Valero Texas Open? What are they doing with the
tour? I don't know
tour?
why you're obsessed by that.
I'm not good with change, man, and the PGA Tour is changing.
Well, it hasn't changed yet, so.
No.
And if Tiger's involved in it, he's no longer involved in it.
He's on hold for a while, yeah. Tiger is not going to be the Ryder Cup captain for 2027, so move that on into the future and come up with somebody else now.
Yeah, I think there's some push for Stuart Sink to be it.
Stuart Sink. That's a great name to say with an accent. All right, DJ and PK, there you go. There are the golf headlines.
Hashtag NHL.
We've been really consistent. If you take from before the Olympic break to long time, December, we've been really, really consistent. The break got us off a little bit, and after the break, we were not as consistent, as stingy. We changed the blueprint a little bit, and that affected our result. I think last game was a game where we played like before the break. That was us. That was the pace. That was the identity. That was the stingy defensively, tough to play against. I like that a lot.
Andre Tourigny, the head coach of the Utah Mammoth. They've had a few days off here, but they are back at it tonight. They play the Kraken in Seattle as they continue to try to put that X next to the name. Only 2 playoff berths clinched so far. They got a little bit of work to do here in the final 8 games, but they're in a pretty good spot. Seattle is scrapping. They've got playoff hopes. I think there's about half a dozen teams fighting for that last berth, and they're in that mix. So, big game for Seattle. Obviously, game the Mammoth need to keep that separation, hold on to that first wild card. That is coming up tonight. You
Yeah,
can
this
listen
is
to
crazy.
it right here on The Zone. What?
To have 4 days off like this, it seems
I know.
bizarre at this
I know.
time of year.
There should have been a game like on Tuesday to keep the momentum going, but that was quite the little mini break they had right there.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like they don't. You used to people playing every other day or maybe 2 days, and here in down the stretch to not have a game seems sort of bizarre to me. Now maybe they can use it to their advantage. I don't know. We'll find out. If they win, they use it to their advantage. If they lost, they're rusty.
They're rusty, right? It's a results-based deal. I've got my cliche. Just give me the final score, and I'll plug in the proper cliche. I got a handful of them. 8 o'clock tonight, the puck will drop pregame at 7 here on KSL Sports. DJ and PK, that is what is trending. And the headlines are brought to you by Shamrock Plumbing. There's no job too big or too small. Get the personal touch with Shamrock Plumbing. All right, coming up, the question of the day is on the way. We will get to that next. Stay with us right here on The Zone.
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson.
Ace Bailey, he didn't come in kicking the door and say, "This is my team now, everyone."
Absolutely, that's a big part of it. But
which I think is a great sign, actually.
Had the Jazz needed Ace to do what he did last night all season, this would have been a team that had a good rookie and had a really long future still ahead of them.
Yeah, nothing else.
And that's not going to be the case. And that's where this really gets interesting for me with what does Ace's future look like. But him doing this now is probably the best time for the Jazz. Nobody else is playing. He's just getting a lot of opportunity. He's getting a taste of what this stardom looks like. And then he's got to come back and fit in with another roster next year.
Yeah, he's got the pull-up. He's got the three. Man, that's a good-looking shot.
Yeah.
He's bouncy.
Yep.
He's blocking shots.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's everything you want to see from a rookie making progress.
Catch Jake and Ben weekdays from 10 to noon on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Hey, sweetie, your mother showed me this Carvana thing for selling the car. I'm going to give it a try. Wish me luck. Me again. I put in the license plate. It gave me an offer. Unbelievable. Okay, I accepted the offer. They're picking it up Tuesday from the driveway. I haven't even left my chair. It's done. The car's gone. I'm holding a check. Anyway, Carvana, give it a whirl. Love ya.
So good, you'll want to leave a voicemail about it. Sell your car today on Carvana. Pickup fees may apply.
DJ and PK, it's time for Hot Takes or Toast. We've played this game before. We'll play it again, but it's intriguing as the season keeps rolling out. Besides Ace Bailey, do any of the young players play the last several games have a future with the Utah Jazz? Bum, bum, bum. Yes, James says. AJ does. Okay, James, we got that. We know Ace does. Yes, he does. Brady says, I don't know if Collier or Sensabaugh have one with the Jazz, but they will make rosters somewhere in the NBA. I think Hinson should stay, and they should cut Cody Williams.
Ooh, wow.
I don't see that happening, PK. I think Cody Williams has gotten better this year. He may not be back with the team. I think whether it's draft night or sometime in the summer, I expect there's a trade coming. I expect them to add a veteran or two, a wing or a guard, a couple people like that. And I don't know who will go away in that deal. And it might come down to, well, who are you getting back? Because all of a sudden there could be a logjam at a position. And it depends on who this other team is and who they really like. But do any of the players have a future? Yes. Can we absolutely name the ones that do and don't? I don't think I can do that. Philip will take a run at it. Collier, Sensabaugh, Filipowski, Williams, George, Kessler, all look like they have a future. So the guys are invested in basically.
Well, I'm not including Kessler.
Thinks they'll stay invested.
Kessler's off to the side there, so I don't include him because he's not playing. The caveat was of
Who's
the group that's
last
playing right now, and obviously Kessler has not played. I think he played 5 games, so he doesn't count in this equation. I think to me, Cody Williams, I could see him in a deal. I like what you're saying there. It's the Taylor Hendricks thing. He's a young guy. He's got athletic ability. You can see why Memphis would be intrigued. They're in a building situation, and so maybe take a fly on somebody, which they obviously did on Clayton and Hendricks, see what they can do. Can they develop? You're not risking a whole lot financially there, and maybe there's something that they find their way to get better and better. I wouldn't count against it. I don't know that I would say, those guys got to develop, and they're going to be solid role players on a 50-win team. Williams, I put him in that same situation. Obviously he's got athletic ability too. Some of the dunks that he's had this year, there have been guys get off the bench and all that, and that's fun and exciting. But that's just one play. There's so much more that goes into this very game of basketball that you got to do a lot of different things. Where does he fit in? And I could see him as a trade bait if they were looking to acquire that veteran or two, as you speak of, that he would be someone who would be intriguing. I think that if they stay, I would rate in order of guys that I want to keep right now. I think he would be third on my list. I think it would be Filipowski 1, Collier 2, Williams 3.
So Filipowski, size is hard to come by, so I get why you would prioritize that. I do wonder if Collier is one of the guys who could go, because I think if they want to be good in the playoffs, they need to go get a veteran guard, and all of a sudden the minutes get really congested there. And I don't know that they'll be out getting someone good enough that they'll want to give up on Keontae George. So I'd be surprised. I mean, if Ace Bailey goes, then it's definitely a blockbuster trade. I mean, it is off the charts, and we'll be talking about it for a long time. So I think he's pretty locked in. I'm not quite that certain on Keontae George, but I'm pretty close. It would be a pretty big trade. It would take something pretty big to move him. And I don't think that's the kind of move they're going to be making, but I guess never say never and don't rule it out. It could happen. So I get your evaluation of Filipowski. Once you go move past Ace Bailey and Keontae George, and like you said, Kessler's off to the side. Yes, he's a young player, but it's the young players who played the last several games, and obviously he hasn't played after the first week or two of the season. So setting him aside. Filipowski, there just aren't as many big players. I think we'll see in this draft that largely, not completely, but we'll see of the top 7, 8, 10 prospects, whatever you consider it is. There's a group, and then there's usually a break, and they go to the next tier. At the end of that first tier will be a bunch of guards. There'll be 3 or 4 who'll probably go later. And the guys who have size, they're going to go earlier because there just aren't that many of them, and they're so hard to get.
Well, Peterson, what is size in your mind?
Yeah, it gets into a gray area for the guy who's like 6'5", 6'6". But I think that kind of player will go in front of the guy who's 6'1", 6'2". And I think that Boozer and DeBonce are locked into the top 3. Again, guys with more size, they're just so hard to come by. And those two are really good. And they got real size. So they're going to go really quick.
Well, yeah, we know who the top 3 are going to be, and what particular order remains to be seen. Then after that, I'd probably go with the Arkansas guard as 4, and then see what happens.
Right, Calipari, man, you've been consistent on that for a long time.
Yeah, and then you got foreign guys that I don't get a chance to see unless they come over and play college ball. Then we see them. But these guys that are over there in Europe, I can look at clips, but I like to see them live and watch them multiple times like I do with the American players, like I did with Ace Bailey last year when he was at Rutgers and playing in that early slotted game here in the Mountain Time Zone. I had, as I said last year or the beginning of this year, sort of joking, I watched more Rutgers basketball last year than I had watched in my entire life, times about 100. And then about this year, I've watched no Rutgers basketball, but I made it a point because they were always on at like 4:30, 5 o'clock our time. And so I had locked down on my home state team. I was more of a Seton Hall guy than I was Rutgers, because my father was a Seton Hall basketball fan. My father was a big college basketball fan. That's funny because he was, and I wasn't. It was all about the NBA for me. It wasn't much college, whereas he, when he was growing up, Seton Hall was just a few miles away from where he lived, so he got into that big time. But Rutgers was an afterthought until last year. I got to see Ace Bailey, and that's why I was so excited when they drafted him, because I'd seen him play, and I think he's really good and has an opportunity to be really good. I would be shocked if he was included in a move.
Right.
He would be right there with I would put him second most untouchable, knowing that there really isn't a thing that is clearly defined in its purest form as untouchable. But I would go Jaren Jackson 1, Ace Bailey 2 in terms of guys that I would be stunned and shocked if they were moved. I would put him ahead of Markkanen, actually, right now. And then
I agree with that.
After Markkanen, I'd probably slot Markkanen third and George fourth. And because I don't know what they're going to do with Kessler being a free agent. They have to figure that one out. So I assume he'll be back, but I don't know that. Maybe they know it, and we'll find out over the summer, obviously. But everybody else would be someone that I would be more than willing to move if there was a right move to make. Yeah, obviously, you have to have supreme talent to get back if you're going to move somebody like a George and a Markkanen. And that'd be kind of funny if they moved Markkanen, because he's been on the team now for years as they lose, and then they finally get good and move him to a crappy team again. I mean, he would pull his hair out. If I were him, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm making all sorts of money. That's one season of money for him can set him up for as long as he wants to be set up. Well, he has multiple seasons of that on top of that. So I think at some point he would like to enjoy winning, because winning is an intoxicant that you cannot purchase. It's something that you can only achieve, and that it's such a phenomenal feeling. And when I say winning, I'm not necessarily talking about the regular season. That's fun. That's okay. You want to be in an environment. But in the NBA, it is literally all about the postseason, to where you can really feel that, wow, we've accomplished something. And he hasn't even played in one playoff game, and he's going to be 28 years old. That's amazing. And so I think that if he got jettisoned to a crappy team, it might be a little bit of a Van Horn thing. I think after a while, Van Horn got sick of being traded and moving around, and he said enough of that. And here, I assume that Markkanen is going to be back. It would be a cruel irony if that were the case, if he did get moved. And, I don't think so, because I think that they want to see stability and see this thing through at least for 2 or 3 years to see what you have. And everybody around here does. That's why we're so excited. It's like we got a little Rip Van Winkle thing. When this thing ends in 5 games, they're like, okay, wake me up. I guess with the lottery and the draft and free agency, it's not quite wake me up in October, because the complexion of the roster could change, which dictates the type of success that you could possibly have. And that'll be intriguing too. And it'll be great. It'll be great to follow. If they do nothing, they have 2 big moves. Say they make no trades, just for discussion's sake, right? They make no trades whatsoever, but they still have 2 big moves, 2 big decisions. 1, who to draft, and 2, what to do with Kessler. And those 2 alone are intriguing enough for me to be excited about what's going to happen when we get to the end of June. May 10th, I think, is the lottery. See, well, that's a huge day. That could potentially be a franchise. I'm not quite ready to go changing, but certainly the direction of which you're going to go can be largely decided on May 10th. That would be something. And then after that, see what happens with Kessler. Those are intriguing enough to make me want to follow it.
Obviously, that draft lottery is a big deal. And obviously, if they get pick 1 or really even 2 or 3, it's huge, right? But if they end up drafting 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe they can draft 8, maybe not. Maybe their lottery odds are about to get better. Way to go, Sacramento. But if they do move back, regardless of how far, I wonder how many of these players they love, and I wonder at what point they think, well, I don't love them anymore. I kind of like them, and these are we're more into B plus B type picks here. And then if somebody else is super fired up, would they trade out? At what point?
Oh, yeah, I don't think there's any question about that. Absolutely. I think Austin Ainge is a chip off the old block. And the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. And what other cliches you got relative to his father? Yeah, I think he's a gutsy guy. And he's going to, if he has the opportunity, pull the trigger on significant deals. I don't think he's going to sit pat. That's just not who he is. He's sort of a gambler. I really feel like I have a good idea of who this young man is. He's not young anymore. I think he just turned 45. Having known him back when he was a kid, I just think that's who he is. He's an aggressive kind of guy. And so with that in mind, he's looking. He's constantly looking to improve the roster. I have no doubt about that. And if something comes up, I have Zero doubt that they would pull the trigger. If you're drafting 1, 2, or 3, that's another story. But if you start to get down to 5, 6, 7, as you say, absolutely I could see that. I have no doubt about that. I mean, you may not see it, but I believe he will have discussions, and anybody who wants to talk, he absolutely will pick up the phone. It's like Kyle Whittingham said on that first practice after the season, and he had announced his retirement. If the phone rings, I'm going to answer it. Yeah. I called him like 20 times the next day just to see if it was true.
Kyle? Hey. Yeah, you picked that up.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye, Kyle.
I just wanted to see. Okay, I got nothing to say. Talk to you later. Bye.
Knock, knock. Who's there, Kyle?
And then I'd get my wife's phone, and then I'd get another phone and just go around the neighborhood where I live. Hey, let me borrow your phone. I got to make a quick phone call. And he answered every time.
Yes.
And I think that's the same thing with Austin. Heck, I got Austin's number. I may do the same thing. Austin, you going to answer the phone? Yeah.
Well, at that point, Kyle had to usually ignore the numbers if you don't know them, right? I'm getting spammed here. But at that point, of course, he's getting calls from people he doesn't know. He doesn't know what university president or AD or whoever's search firm is going to call him.
Right. And then what's that one call, that's all? It turns out with Kyle, there was one call, and that's all.
That's all. Nice.
Right?
One call, Michigan. That's all.
Yeah, that's all. There was literally no other job that could top that job, so that was it. He said he would answer the phone. He ended up only having to answer it once. His
really
agent,
complain.
Bruce, probably was the one.
Yeah, it was.
I think that the way he said it, I think his agent, Bruce, over there in California, I've talked to him a number of times over the years, and I think that's who they went, and then he had that contact in a way. In fact, I exchanged text with Bruce about a week after, and he was telling me how crazy that week was, as we can imagine, right? Because you have Utah doing that thing with them going back and forth, and then you had Michigan over here. And I didn't even ask him, but there might have been other phone calls too. It's just no one was going to be able to top the opportunity at Michigan. So I don't know if there were. I didn't even think to ask, did anybody else? Because in my mind, it was just Michigan. But that might be silly to think, well, it was Michigan or bust. Maybe it wasn't, now that I think about it. I don't know.
Mora was the second choice at CSU. Hey, Kyle, it's CSU. Want to go back? Want to go back to the pack?
Well, yeah, who knows what could have been out there as far as that goes. I don't know. I'm just kind of talking out loud here that maybe there were other calls, but when I talked to Bruce, it was like it was Michigan. But maybe that wasn't the case.
Yeah.
I don't know. But obviously it was Michigan, and Michigan went through with it. And I think that Austin Ainge is going to listen. He's looking to make as big a move as possible. I don't think he's a conservative guy when it comes to this stuff.
It'd just be ironic if we sat here and worried about the draft lottery and lottery position all year, as did the club, and then the ping pong balls bounce against you and you have to trade in the pick to get a veteran anyway.
Well, okay, yeah, but that would be great.
But
if it's a player who can come in. Yeah, I wouldn't have any problem with that because they still got a bunch of youth. They could add someone who's even 30 years old and still be a fairly young team. They can still have a core that can grow while they have some veterans help them win now. That's, in my mind, I don't have no idea who the player is, but in my mind, that is a good scenario. So you can kind of get the best of both a little bit. You've got this young group. If they re-sign Kessler, he's still young enough. And then obviously with George and Ace, those guys are still kids. And then you got the other guys, the other three that we've been talking about. They're all young too. So why not if you can do that? That's up to them. They got to see. First, you got to see where you fall in the draft order. Then you got several weeks there. You got about 5.5, 6 weeks to figure out, is there something that we can do, move that pick, whoever it might be, or things kind of come together right at the end too, because then when you are, say they're drafting 6th for argument's sake, you're not really sure who you're going to get until the draft starts. And then with each pick, as you get down to number 4, you have a better idea. So there might be some preliminary discussions, and then things get cemented really quick right at the end on draft night. And we've seen, obviously, Team A drafts a player with the intent of trading him to Team B. That could be the case, too.
It could well be. That's all sitting out there.
Yeah.
I do think that the thought that they're going to win with a really young guard line in the playoffs, if they want to maximize this 3-year window with Markin and Jackson both signed, and this chance, assuming they sign Kessler, to have these 3 7-footers and have this enormous front line, which we really haven't seen with the Jazz. They historically, they go in and they're either physically they kind of match up with the other team, or they tend to be a little on the smaller side. They don't have the positional size at some places. And so this would be really unusual if they have this front line together next year. I don't know if we've ever seen anything like this. So can they build off it? They probably need a veteran to handle the ball in the mix. And then, who gets the playing time?
Oh, in the mix, yeah. I mean, George is going to be a veteran, too. He's going to go in his 4th year.
Mm-hmm.
So he's got some experience under his belt. He's not, a grizzled veteran. But I get your point. Yeah, it makes sense. You've brought it up many, many times. You'll continue to bring it up because it's so plausible and it's logical and it makes a lot of sense. I always thought back in the day that they should have played the Twin Towers of either Felton Spencer and James Donaldson or throw an Ostertag there.
That's really what you wanted to see, huh? I don't think you wanted to see that. Felton Spencer and James Donaldson. James Donaldson, nice pull. Oh, what I really remember James Donaldson is somebody did a feature with him. Might have been a lemma. Somebody did a feature with him about he did some type of martial arts. I can't remember the details of it, but it's just crazy to see this big guy, just arms and legs coming at you. That was wild. That was a wild video. But he did it to kind of
James Donaldson was a statesman.
Yeah.
He had a little bit of Boris Diaw going on with him, a lot of different things.
Yeah. All right, DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Coming up this morning, we got more for you. We got some hockey coming up because, of course, it is, what are we down to, 8 games now left in the NHL season for the Utah Mammoth. They haven't clinched yet. They're sitting on 82 points. We'll talk with Jay Stevens, host of the Utah Puck Report for KSL Sports, coming up at the top of the hour. And with the Final Four this weekend, Ken Pomeroy, KenPom.com, will get his analysis of these last 4 teams standing. That's at 9 o'clock. DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Just a bunch of guys sitting around and talking sports. This is Scotty G and Friends.
Athletic Director of Utah State University, Cameron Walker. Not only are you looking to hire a new head coach, but you also become the de facto recruiter to keep your own student athletes in place. How do you manage that as an athletic director?
Obviously, my job here is to keep as many as I can and have the best team. But if it's best for someone to go, then they should go. But I ask them, hang tight, don't do anything in the next 48 hours. Don't decide to stay or go. Collect your thoughts. Let us get a hire in and then make your decision. You'll have time. It'll be okay. But then when that time comes, make the best decision for you and your family. I think that's important. I think as much as I'd love to say, hey, you player X, stay, because that's best for me. If that's not best for them, I'm being selfish, and that's not what Utah State's about.
Catch Scotty G and Friends weekdays from noon to 3 on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. And PK, the NBA story of the night, the Sacramento Kings unexpectedly winning. They pick up win number 20. The Jazz are on 21. For all the Jazz fans who were worried they would fall from 5th back to 6th, now there's a chance they could climb to 4th. I didn't think there was any chance, but that one turned my head. Unexpected. It could happen. And another 2.5% chance of moving to number 1.
Can you count on the Kings? Can you ever count on the Kings? Just when you think you've identified what the Kings are and who they are about, look what happens. And away we go. Those fetching Kings.
Every time you think,
people keep asking me about it. Yeah, they keep asking me about it. Can you think they can move up, and can they get help from the Kings? And I would simply respond, no Kings.
Oh, I see what you did there. That was clever. That was very clever. And then you march around the neighborhood saying no Kings.
Yeah, the only place I've ever marched is to the table. The kitchen table.
Yeah.
That's
You
it.
can call him Patrick. You can call him PK, but don't call him late for dinner.
Yeah, that's not who I am. I'm not sure what it changes, but that's just me. And you can do whatever you want. That's the beauty of this puppy, and I'm glad to live here.
So if the Jazz move from 5th to 4th, their odds of drafting number 1 go from 10.5% to 12.5%, and the odds of moving into the top 4 go from 42% to 48%. So I guess there's a little bit of the old home court advantage in the playoffs. I'd rather have it than not, but I'm not sure I'm going to need it. You know, you're in a 6-game playoff series. You both had 3 home games. What does it matter? It just doesn't.
Yeah, well, that's why you play the whole
Sacramento
regular
drops to
season,
5.
and that's why we've seen so much load management. Yeah, that's what we've seen.
Yeah. And if
teams realize that, what does it matter?
And if the Jazz move up to 4 and Sacramento drops to 5, and then the ping pong balls align for team number 5, there will be much crying and gnashing of teeth. And it could happen.
In the moment, though, I don't think it's long term, because I don't think that it is a big time blow, because as continuing and carrying off of what we were just talking about with AA Austin Ainge, they have so many things at their disposal. Any which way you of another team want to make a move with the Jazz, well, what are you interested in? You interested in young players? You interested in draft picks? What do you want here? What are you thinking? What do you have to offer us? And then B, what do you want back from us, right? And so with that in mind, just say that the balls don't fall their way again. I don't think that it's not a crushing blow, because they still have so much at their disposal that they can make the team, maybe not incredibly better, but incrementally better. And if you can make the team incrementally better through this draft, that's what you're looking for. Obviously, if you can make it, as I say, I just made up some dumb phrase, incredibly better, if you fell into the top 2 or 3, well, you have a potential there to do what you're looking for, right? This goes back many years, what the Celtics had, and then the ultimate tragedy, they lose 2 players to death. And so that transition, which they were set up to make potentially, the players die, obviously. What a tragedy that was, right? So you can't go in that direction. But that's what maybe the Jazz can do now if they want to get somebody who is, say you trade 2 or 3 of your young guys and you get somebody who's 30, 31, 32 years old, but is really still good and can help you for the next 2 to 3 years, well, you're not stripping away the future, too. That's what's cool about all the options that they have. So, yeah, I want to see them get the number 1 pick. Obviously, get the Bonsa and away you go. But if it doesn't happen, which statistically it's a long shot to happen, I understand that. The Mavericks, it was statistically an even longer shot, and they ended up with Cooper Flagg. Well, if it doesn't happen, it's not the end of the world. It's not throw up your hands, woe is us, we can't do anything. No, I think it's just exactly the opposite. It means, okay, now we know where we're going to draft. We know we're going to have a choice of, say, 3 or 4 players, see how it falls. And now we can go to work and find out if there are teams that want that pick, maybe throw in another pick, maybe throw in a player or 2, and we can make our team that much better for the 26-27 season without really sacrificing completely for like the 30-31 season.
That's the fork in the road they face right now. If you get the top pick, and let's say you get DeBonsa, you have DeBonsa, and you have Kessler, and you have Ace Bailey and Keontae George. So you have this 3-year window with Jackson and Markkanen, and then who knows? Maybe they re-up and they're still here. Maybe not. Maybe one does, one doesn't, however that plays out. But you got a core of 4 guys that you can build out over 4, 5, 6, 7 years with. But if you don't hit on the draft,
right,
and you are drafting 6th or 7th, maybe it's a trade and it's a veteran, and you're really going for it in these next 3 years in a little more intense pattern and intense effort. And we'll know when we get to August and September, because then all those moves will have been made, and then we'll know. But right now we're sitting there waiting at the fork in the road. But I think what you said earlier is true, and it's the old Matt Harper, do your homework early when he would talk about a big man getting down the floor to defend another big man and beating him to the spot. Do your homework early. Because the Jazz front office went and made the Jaren Jackson trade, and because he got Kessler coming back from injury, they've already made big moves. If we don't get another big move, we got 2 big moves because they did their homework early. All right, DJ and PK, when we come back, Jay joins us. We are talking Utah Mammoth, the playoff push, 8 games left in the regular season. That's next. Stay with us.
Mom, can you tell me a story?
Sure. Once upon a time, a mom needed a new car.
Was she brave?
She was tired, mostly. But she went to Carvana.com and found a great car at a great price. No secret treasure map required.
Did you have to fight a dragon?
Nope. She bought it 100% online. From her bed, actually.
Was it scary?
Honey, it was as unscary as car buying could be.
Did the car have a sunroof?
It did, actually.
Okay, good story.
Car buying you'll want to tell stories about. Buy your car today on Carvana. Delivery fees may apply.
The Honda Spring Event. Bring on the fun with a Honda Hybrid. Now's the time to check out the Honda CR-V Hybrid, Accord Hybrid, or Civic Hybrid from the 2025 Kelley Blue Book Best Performance Brand. For a limited time, well-qualified buyers can get a 4.49% APR on a 2026 Civic Hybrid, or a 2026 Accord Hybrid, or a 2.99% APR on a 2026 CR-V Hybrid.
See dealer for financing details. Based on 2025 Consumer Choice Awards from Kelley Blue Book. Visit kbb.com for more information.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. The Utah Mammoth are in action tonight. They haven't played since they won big Saturday in L.A., 6-2, as they continue to be awesome in the road in the month of March. We'll see what April holds for them. March was pretty weird. We'll get into that with Jay Stevens here in a moment. But here they come down the home stretch, 8 games to go, 5 of them at home, 3 of them on the road. Normally that's the kind of breakdown you'd like, but the way they've been playing in March, they'd rather be on the road, PK. They've been much better on the road. We're joined now by Jay Stevens.
I'd rather be on the ice.
Of the, host of the podcast here covering the Mammoth on the KSL Sports Zone. He joins us on all the shows. Jay, good morning.
Good morning.
Jay, explain it to us like we're 5. Why in the month of March were they 6-2 on the road, and then they come home and they don't just lose, but it's mostly a disaster. For the month of March, I think it ends up being 1-6 at home. What? That doesn't make any sense. That's backwards from everything we know about sports. What's happened?
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah, it's kind of it is crazy, and I was thinking the same thing, and I started doing some research, and in the past 20 years, the overall home winning percentage for teams in the NHL is 54%, and then it drops to 52% during the playoffs. And that's over the last 20 years in the NHL. The other thing you have to look at is who Utah was playing at home with, Edmonton and Washington, and teams coming out of the East that are really good. And then you always get into that thing is, all right, do they have distractions at home? Are they not getting the same amount of rest because they have their families and other obligations? They got to mow the lawn and all that other stuff that seems to pop up, when you're at home. So I think those are true factors. It's a really weird thing to see. You would expect your team to always be better at home than they are on the road, but yeah, it just it wasn't in Utah's favor for the month of March. But the rest of the schedule going forward is in Utah's favor. They play 3 road games and they have 5 home games. So you hope those are the home games where the home ice advantage really kicks in.
How much do you believe in momentum going into the postseason? Because obviously the odds favor that the Mammoth make the postseason. They still got to get it done, but statistically they should. With that in mind, what do you think of momentum that you can gain at the end of the regular season playing well going into the postseason?
I think the momentum plays into it in a couple different ways. Yes, you want a little breathing room between you and the teams that are chasing you. That does help a little bit. But the other part of the momentum is the confidence that each of the players gets, especially, starting from goaltending out. If you've got a nice little winning streak and you feel like you're really starting to get into the groove, and there are times for goalies where they don't even see the puck, but it just hits them when they're playing through screens, and that just lets you know that you're in the right position and that you're doing the right things. And that momentum, that confidence really carries you into the first series where, hopefully that's the one you can steal, is that the first-round matchup, which right now statistically looks like it could be Anaheim. There's a chance it could be Edmonton. But you start feeling the confidence. You start using that momentum to, work on your power play. That is the one part of this, by the way, that we haven't really mentioned, is that the Utah power play has scored 7 goals in the last 10 games, and they're at about 20% in the last 10 games. They're at 14% over the course of the whole season. So it's all those little things start adding up. The power play starts playing better. The penalty kill is better. Your goaltending is better. Your defense is clicking together and playing better. And then your forwards obviously start feeding off that and capitalize on those, the offensive chances they get. Because playoff hockey is real shutdown hockey. You're not going to get the same opportunities. So using that momentum, using that confidence building going into the playoffs is huge, especially for a young team like the Mammoth.
Jay Stevens joining us as Utah Mammoth counted down here to the end of the regular season. All of our Utah Mammoth interviews are brought to you by Hercules First Federal Credit Union, growing stronger together. Seems like it was just a couple weeks ago there were 3 teams in the Pacific Division separated by 1 point. You mentioned Anaheim's pulled in front here a little bit. How confident are you that Utah will finish in that first wild card, they will play the Pacific Division champ, and it will be Anaheim? What's the shakiest part of that equation?
Well, the shakiest part of that equation is how these other teams are all of a sudden starting to find that momentum as well. Edmonton is only 2 points out of that first spot. So you've got Anaheim doing well. You've got Edmonton doing well. Last night as we went to bed, Nashville was in that second wild card spot. All of a sudden, the LA Kings leapfrogged them. Now they're in that second playoff spot. They're 4 points behind Utah for the first wild card spot. So Utah really has to win half of their games to stay. I think that's about the magic right there. If they win 4 of the remaining 8 or 5 of the remaining 8, that really puts them in the driver's seat to control their own destiny. And then Anaheim really just needs to figure out. They've lost a couple games here. They lost the other night. So Edmonton and Anaheim, that's going to be a real battle. That's going to go right down probably to the last game to see who actually does clinch the Pacific.
So, Jay, I understand you touched a nerve by saying the Mammoth aren't physical enough, and you got some solutions. Tell us about it.
Yeah, I did touch a nerve the other night when I said that on my show. I think I actually said it on the radio as well. I called them soft, and I don't mean that in a hugely negative way, but Utah has really leaned on being, they lean on their speed, they lean on their skill, and again, we're going to see in the playoffs how much more physical these games become. And sadly, my fix for it isn't a fix that we're going to see this season, but the Utah Mammoth have drafted some really big kids, and they've got a few kids in the system that they're probably going to make the team next year. And the first one is Cole Baudouin. He was Utah's second first round pick right after Tidja Ginla. He's a phenomenal player. He's 6'2", 225. And then they also have a kid named Gabe Smith, who's actually on a line with Caleb Denoyer, our first round pick from last year for the Mammoth. And he's going to end up being a big steal for the Mammoth. He's a 5th round draft pick. He is a 6'4", 225-pound wrecking ball who loves to hit, loves to fight. He's mean when he's on the ice. He's the answer for what happened with Washington with Tom Wilson. So the Utah Mammoth are drafting bigger players, which you expect from Bill Armstrong. He was a bigger player. He was a menace when he was on the ice. So you're going to find Utah start to balance out. They have all the skill and the speed on their top 2 lines, and you're going to see some of these bigger kids coming in the next 2 seasons that are going to fill that physical and that meanness requirement that's needed to go deep in the playoffs.
Yeah, you threw out soft. You had to anticipate. No matter what you meant, you had to anticipate there was going to be some pushback. You had to know that was coming. Now, yeah, soft could mean. Are you talking, so is it more size or is it more mindset and mentality and a willingness to, throw your shoulder in there and blow somebody up?
Well, I'm going to have to go with both, and maybe that's a cheating answer, but, you need more size. Utah is one of the smallest teams. I think they average out to about 6'1", 195, and then you look at teams like Florida and Edmonton and Tampa Bay, and they average out more to the 6'2", 6'3", 220 across the whole team. So they're just bigger teams going into the playoffs. And then there is that meanness part to it. And we have some guys that just want to be skill, and there's nothing wrong with that. You just have to find, those other pieces that go in and can, when you start banging bodies, when you start checking everybody, every play, you see guys finishing checks. It's just like body blows in boxing. The longer you have a guy that finishes checks and makes it hard for Utah to play against, the more space those skill guys and those fast guys are going to have, because the other team just doesn't want to play against you. Right now, Utah is not hard to play against. There's not a lot of finishing their checks. There's a lot of really fun hockey to watch. So, I'm already trying to stop all the emails I'm going to get. They need the size. They need the meanness. Right now, what they have is skill and a lot of speed, which is fun to watch. But in the playoffs, you're going to need some meanness and some size. And Utah doesn't really have that right now. I mean, they do have two power forwards. They do have McBain. They do have Lawson Krause. You have Carcone, who will hit and fight anybody. And then you have Yamamoto coming in at 5'6", and he'll hit, or I think he's 5'9", and he'll hit anybody. And I think he'll fight anybody. But other than that, we really just don't have that mean streak in anybody.
And that, I believe, is the point you're making as far as the postseason. The difference between the regular season and the postseason is just in the very things that you've been talking about, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And I interviewed Ian Cole last night, who has to be one of the unsung heroes for the Utah Mammoth for the last 2 years. And I was talking to Ian about, because, he has 2 Stanley Cups. He's gone deep in the playoffs several times. And I was asking him about what it takes. And he says what it takes is us making sure that the other team doesn't have any space. They don't have time. They can't think. We punish them at every opportunity. They have to be defensive-minded and shut everything down in the defensive zone, basically not allow pucks in the defensive zone. And that there is that worry that maybe you're not punishing anybody. You'll see a lot of times you'll see a defenseman chip the puck from the other team. They'll chip the puck back down into the zone, and the Utah forward will just curl back without finishing the check on that defenseman. That defenseman should be hit every time they touch the puck. And that includes inside our – when Utah gets into the offensive zone, you can't let a defenseman just, clear the puck without getting hit. Utah forwards have to hit those defensemen every time they touch the puck. And you're just not seeing that right now, but that does become playoff hockey.
Yeah, I can see where your answer about both matters, though, because the willingness to go out there and mix it up and, hey, I'll embrace another half dozen collisions, right? Whatever they look like, whatever body parts colliding, I'm going to get a piece of that guy, whatever it takes. It's easier to embrace that when you're 2 inches taller and 20 pounds heavier. Over the course of a game, that's a little more fun. It's a little more fun to beat up on the little guy than it is to think I'm going to go pick a fight with Goliath over there.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And when you do get those bigger players in, they also kind of embrace that role too. And we did have somebody that was willing to fight, Tom Wilson, and we do have people that are willing to fight, but we don't have people that are going to win all those fights. Even Spicy Tuna, if you put him in the lineup, he's outmatched in a lot of physicality parts, and that's okay. Utah's doing great. They're going to make the playoffs. They've been fun to watch all year. But you do kind of want, you do want to add that spiciness to the roster. You do want to add that big guy that not only is he willing to fight, but he is going to take the fight to that whoever that person is, whether it's Tom Wilson. You're going to see some big boys coming out, especially if Utah makes it to a playoff series with Edmonton. Connor McDavid's a big boy. Draisaitl's a big boy. They've got Nurse on defense. They've got some big boys that Utah needs to contend with. Right now we have players that are willing to fight. We don't want Lawson Krause necessarily fighting. He's a real skill guy. That's the same thing with McBain. You're talking about guys that have got 20 goals and are scoring, and you want that guy that's just going to be a menace. We really want to see eventually a really good fourth line. Your fourth line is usually your big boys, your banging line. You send them out to crunch guys. And right now our fourth line is Kerfoot, Stenlund, and Tanev. I mean, Tanev and Kerfoot, they're not 6 feet. And I think, you add them together, you might get 300 pounds. So our fourth line is not a pounding line, But, Kerfoot is seeing some goals off that fourth line too. So there are some pluses to being fast, but we do need some meanness in this lineup.
So, Jay, we're just a couple of weeks away from them finishing their second season, right? And we've heard this love affair with the team and the fans compared to where they were at the end down in Arizona, and they're so excited to be playing before raucous fans and all. Has anybody spoke to them, or do they understand what it's going to be in the postseason here? Because I think the community will go crazy, particularly with the Jazz not having postseason for a number of years. That building, in terms of sports, has basically been dark once we get to April 15th until the following season. Well, not this year. So I'm expecting whatever they have seen these last almost 2 years will pale in comparison to the enthusiasm of the postseason that we'll see in this town. If it's anything like for a Jazz playoff game, which I suspect it will be, that it will be a lot rowdier. Have the guys been aware of that? Have they been talking about that at all?
Yeah, actually a lot yesterday. When I went into the locker room yesterday just to interview a couple of the players, we brought, everybody was bringing up playoffs and this road trip and how much it means. And the guys get it. Especially the guys that have been in Arizona for the last few years, and like Clayton Keller and Schmaltz, those guys really get it. They really do appreciate it. That's the cool thing about these NHL players. They came into town and they felt really welcomed. And last year we talked about a little bit. They struggled at home, and it was almost because of that added pressure. And we even said, I said in one of my articles and on one of my shows, and Cole Bagley said it in one of his articles, that the Delta Center felt like this playoff intensity last year. Almost every game. Like every game, there was so much anticipation, and you kind of felt that in the Delta Center. And, we got made fun of a little bit, but then other teams' media would come in and they'd say the same thing. It's like, yeah, this Delta Center has a different energy. And so the players get it. If they make the playoffs this year, which, again, statistically it looks like they're going to, and if they make the playoffs, that building is going to be unreal. The Utah fans are really absorbing it. You had a really good hockey base here, and then you have all these new fans too, and you've got just this love affair, like you said, with the team, where the Utah fans almost are willing this into existence. They're willing the team into the playoffs, and playoff intensity is just going to be unreal. I think the Delta Center is going to be one of the top 10 places in the NHL with intensity and fan excitement. And because, it is all new. And the fans are going to get that this is the first time they've been in the playoffs. And Arizona hasn't been in the playoffs for 100 years. So for some of these players, they're going to be grateful to be in the playoffs. And the fans have been so amazing. It really caught me off guard. And I've been one of the ones saying that the NHL could work here forever. But the Utah fan base has been way better than I ever could have even anticipated. So it's going to be crazy in the Delta Center.
What is the magic number to clinch that playoff berth? Is it 90? Is it a nice round number, or you got it fixed somewhere else?
It's got to be 92. It's the last few years have proven that last wild card spot, or that even the first wild card spot, it's between 92 and 96 points. And with everything getting as close as it is, I'm going to say Utah really needs 92 points. And I think that's within their shot. I think they can get that. The schedule really does kind of favor them. They play Seattle tonight, which they should win. They play Vancouver on Saturday, which I don't know if you saw. Vancouver beat Colorado 8-6 last night, which blows my mind. So Utah can't go into Vancouver with the easy win mentality. They're going to have to come and actually bring it. Then Edmonton at home, Nashville at home, Carolina. Carolina's going to be a tough battle. So out of the remaining 8 games, I see 3 really tough battles for Utah. But then the rest of the games, as long as they come in with their A game and they play the game like they know they can play, they can get to that 92 points. It would be nice to see them beat Edmonton at home, and it'd be really nice to see them beat Carolina at home. But Carolina's just been playing lights out this season.
Well, Jay, we're getting texts. I can't unsee Dylan Gunther mowing the lawn. So if you accomplished nothing else, you have you've messed with some people mentally for the rest of the day. Good work.
Oh, well, I do what I can. I love to spike up that email chain,
There you go. Thanks, Jay. We appreciate it.
Good day, y'all.
There's Jay Stevens. You can check him out. He's got a podcast on the Mammoth, KSL Sports, and it's available at YouTube as well. And he joins all our shows, rotating through all of them. They're all available at YouTube, too. So if you want more hockey content, Jay is providing it for you on a regular basis. DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. We're talking Final Four with Ken Pomeroy from KenPom.com at the top of the hour. Stay with us.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Because Progressive offers discounts for paying in full, owning a home, and more. Plus, you can count on their great customer service to help you when you need it, so your dollar goes a long way. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save on car insurance. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states or situations.
Mom, can you tell me a story?
Sure. Once upon a time, a mom needed a new car.
Was she brave?
She was tired, mostly. But she went to Carvana.com and found a great car at a great price. No secret treasure map required.
Did you have to fight a dragon?
Nope. She bought it 100% online. From her bed, actually.
Was it scary?
Honey, it was as unscary as car buying could be.
Did the car have a sunroof?
It did, actually.
Okay, good story.
Car buying you'll want to tell stories about. Buy your car today on Carvana. Delivery fees may apply.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Ken Pomeroy's coming up to talk Final Four at the top of the hour. PK, you put a question up on our Facebook page earlier this week, but there's been so much going on we haven't gotten to it here. Are you rooting for Big 12 member Arizona in the Final Four? And the answers are, well, predictably, it's all over the map. Eldon, ask me when hockey is done. Well, when hockey is done, this won't be a story anymore, Eldon, so that's not a good timeline. Martin, yes, they're the only bracket winner left in the ones I filled out. All of other Martin's choices down the tubes. Melody says, yes, Big 12 at this point, and I do like Arizona's team, but Eric says, no, Illinois. 2 years ago, I moved off away from this university. Keaton Wagler's a rising star the Jazz fans should keep an eye on if they don't get a top 3 pick. So, all over the map. Hockey, Arizona, Illinois. Michelle says, oh, blue. Brian's all about Michigan also. Here's the deal. When the leagues were together in what we thought would be forever, but it was at least, 10 or 20 years or whatever, could your league be elevated if somebody in League One? Sure. But when we're looking at something where it's going to get pulled apart in 4 years, are you going to get credit for it in the long run? Will it help you next year or in 2 years? Maybe there's something for it, or does that just make them the more likely candidate to get gobbled up in whatever college sports is about to look like when the powers that be reorganize in 2030? I don't feel like I have the long-term investment in a league that just barely came together and feels like it might get pulled apart again.
Well, how about the short term? Because the more you win, the more money it makes for the conference. And you, as a member of that conference, whoever you might be, receive some financial remuneration. So in terms of money, it puts more money in your pocket. And I don't think anybody is going to go to any conference on the strength of their basketball team. That's nice, but it is 95% football and fit and all this other stuff. Remember when it used to be, there's such an academic fit here, the AAU, the land grants. And I used to say, bleep that. That's a bunch of nonsense. That's what they want you to believe. At least now, through all these changes that we've seen, nobody talks about academics anymore. And they never did. It was just fake. It was phony, right? And they're not going to some school. The Bonsa didn't come to BYU for their fill-in-the-blank program academically. No. And nor should he, right? Because he wanted to have the best basketball situation to prepare him for the NBA. That's what this is about. And they would go and act like you got these academic people, and I swear the athletic people said it just to get them off their backs. And so, yeah, we really care about academics. Oh, it's a fine academic institution. Great. And 90% of the athletes aren't coming there for that. They didn't go to fill in the blank to play school. They went there to play football. So basketball is not going to drive it, but in the short term, it does give you money right now. And why wouldn't you want money right now?
If you had to just spotlight one decision that just screamed, wait a minute, you did that for the sports, not for the academics. And it can't even be debated, and you like to debate everything. You'll play devil's advocate and switch in a minute just for the sheer fun of it. Explain to me why they took Oregon over Stanford. Ha! This doesn't make any sense at all. It's not about the academics. If it lines up and it's a convenient thing to say, and like you said, it gets somebody off your back, you'll say it. But the Big Ten took Oregon, and they didn't take Stanford. Are you kidding me? Nothing against Oregon, but they're not making anybody's top 20 list of schools. And Stanford's 1 or 2 all the time. So, show them the money.
Yeah, who cares about that? I don't care about that.
I do think,
knew it never was about that in the beginning anyway.
Yeah, you get the payout for Arizona, and actually the Arizona winning 4 games already, so that's already a lot of money, and then, keep putting the money in the coffers. So there is that. I mean, there's that. And then there's just the is it just fun? I mean, if you're just in it for the fun of it all, would it be more fun to have the defending champ? Now, I assume the defending champ is going to send multiple players to the NBA, and, going back to back, it's hard to keep a group together. It might be fun to have them coming through town next year as the defending champs. That was another thing that we used to look forward to, but it doesn't really feel like you look forward to that much anymore either, as these teams get pulled apart and put back together like taffy.
Well, yeah, we also don't know if they're actually going to come through town anyway, because we don't necessarily go with the home and home. Some do, but not all, so you don't know how it's going to be. I do agree with the one poster who talked about the kid from Illinois. I've been following him a little bit, read some stuff on him earlier in the season, and it's funny to say these kids are so young, and they're a late bloomer. But in terms of the hype going into the season, he didn't have it. And now watching him develop under Underwood has been something that I've been keeping my eye on, because I think they've got a really solid program. And in order to have a solid program, you have to have good players. The coach can get a lot of credit, and typically does in college, maybe more so in the NBA than the NBA. But nevertheless, no matter who the coach is, he has to have some horses out on that floor to help him win. And that's a player, if you're looking for maybe the Jazz fall back a little bit in the draft and you're looking for somebody who hasn't even come close to peaking, that might be somebody to keep an eye on, right? Because you don't want to go exclusively on NCAA tournament runs, because we've seen guys really elevate themselves. I think Arizona had a kid, I want to say his name was Williams, and he went second in the draft a few years back because he had a really nice tournament. I think it was over in Anaheim that they played, and the kid did nothing in the NBA and was a very high pick. And that's a recent example, and there's been plenty others, and I know you'll go to the O'Bannon one is one too. But I want somebody maybe who I've been watching, and that's what I have faith in the Jazz people, that they've been watching so many of these kids that it's not going to be based on a couple of games, maybe in the Sweet 16 or in the Final Four. It's going to be a full body of work. Plus, if they're not that highly sought after in the beginning, maybe they have a huge upside and can get really just substantially better. I mean, look at George. What was he, 16th? Undersized maybe, but in his third year has had a breakout season. And to look at him and have the projection going forward into his fourth and fifth and so forth seasons in the NBA, you'll like where that's going. So that's something to keep an eye on as I watch this Final Four, to see this kid from Illinois do his thing, because I think that he could be, to me, he's definitely a lottery pick now, but maybe a later lottery. You never know. I mean, I think most people, at least I was, for what it's worth, was surprised that Charlotte took Knipple playing for them with a fourth pick. And yet, wow, what a rookie season he's had. Now, fortunately for him, he went to he went to a crappy team, and so he's had this opportunity, and they had some wing guys, and then they had Ball, but the position that Knibble played, they didn't really have anybody, so he slides right into that position from day one, and certainly for just a kid who would be a sophomore in college, we don't really say that anymore, but that's what he would be. He has just blossomed big time, and a large part and a large reason why that franchise has basically flipped itself from being a joke to now, if they can keep it together and guys keep their heads on straight, which is always a big if with younger folks, you never know, or the older folks for that matter. Look at me, my head's not on straight. And going forward, they have something that they can build. And he's playing a significant part. So that's what it's about. So I look at these teams and, I want to see Michigan win it just so I can see Whittingham there talking about, and I assume he'll go to the Final Four. He'll be in Indianapolis, and I want to see him just all of a sudden with his Michigan gear just rooting like a lifelong maize and blue fan like these guys do. We saw Sarkisian back when Texas was playing, and that had that real close game right at the end right there, and he was getting all fired up, high-fiving people left and right. That's what I want to see Kyle do. I want to see him dressed head to toe in Michigan gear because he's been a lifelong 3-month Michigan fan, and now's the time to show it.
Well, then watch Saturday night. Because they think they're playing the second game Saturday. With spring football, isn't that going to be way easier for a football coach to make than Monday? I think you better watch Saturday. He's still got football.
Oh, I would assume he would be there, right, for both.
I think he'll be there Saturday. But
yeah, it's spring football. Come on.
That'd be awesome. He's on the sideline. Hey, guys, I want you to go hard today. It's spring football. Come on. I'm getting on a plane. I'm out of here. I don't think so.
It's the Final Four, man. Michigan against Arizona. This is two really good programs. Obviously, they viewed that game to be even more special than the first one. They put it at second. So, yeah, I believe he'll be there, and I believe we'll see him on camera.
I think we'll see him on TV Saturday as well. Monday might surprise me, but Saturday I can see. I think your point about the late bloomers.
Both, man. Come on.
People scoff. People scoff and roll their eyes and late bloomers and all that. But even as young as these guys are becoming very good players, and even though some of these guys are able to step in what would be like their sophomore year of college, like you say, and make a difference in the NBA, they're still developing at wildly different rates. I mean, DeBonta has been on everybody's radar since he was a freshman in the NBA. You were talking yesterday about all the national teams he's been on. It's like 3 summers in a row, and he was their Mr. Basketball in Massachusetts as a freshman. So some of these guys are on top of it. And we just had in the last update with Cody, it's like, yeah, being 18, 19 years old and trying to play with grown men, yeah, you better be, paraphrasing, but basically you better be humble enough to expect a learning curve. You don't want to walk out there thinking, yeah, I'm all that at 18 against guys who've been pros for 5 or 10 years. Good luck with that. So, I mean, they're still young, but there's still a wide variance in how quickly they take off. And there are sleepers.
Oh, that's a fact, and I think a lot of it, like you take a kid like Knipple, since that's who we're talking about. Well, you look at him physically, and for whatever reason, he's matured physically. It doesn't look like he needs to really get a ton stronger. And then you look at somebody like a Cody Williams, and he's a string bean when he comes in the league, and his body type dictates that you must get extremely much stronger, right? And so that's the deal with Cam Boozer as to go into this draft. Boozer has the NBA body today. Now, he can get stronger and all that, and they will, because there'll be some natural evolution that just goes with maturity. And then when you get into that situation where they've got so much available for you and the off season and blah, blah, blah. But I think that goes into it, too, as they project what body size do you have right now? What are your physical dimensions? How much more do you need to improve in those areas? That's what fascinates me about Ace Bailey is what do they want out of him? What are they looking for him going forward physically? Because he's still a young pup, and there's going to be – I don't know if there's 5 guys in the league who have more athletic ability combined with the height and the reach and all that stuff that goes into it than Ace Bailey, right? He's got to be near the top of the list in all those things that you look at for great basketball players. Now, what do they want him to do strength-wise? What are they looking for weight-wise? What have they figured out? What are their training people who specialize in all this stuff? Pablo Mastroianni talking about that, how they have so many different people on their staff that advise them that this player needs to do this, and they track this and that, all this stuff. It's very highly technical, as it should be, because it's at the highest level and there's tons of financial investment. What are they looking for Ace Bailey? That's something that I want to see. I would like to know what their plan is. Majerus used to say to Britton Johnson, he needs to lock himself in the weight room over the summer and throw away the key. You know, he would be emphatic in his just assertion of what these guys need to do. Now you look at Britton, using Britton as an example, and he got stronger and all, but his body size didn't really change that much from freshman to senior year. Well, you take a kid like Van Horn, wow, he added like 50 pounds from his freshman to his senior year, right? He was just massively different by the time he ended compared to the time that he began. Well, what are they looking at Ace Bailey? What are we going to see in 2 to 3 years physically? And how does it affect his game? That's one of the subplots that I want to see develop. And for me, I'm intrigued by it. And if I'm intrigued by something, you've got my interest.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. More on Arizona and the Final Four at the top of the hour with Ken Pomeroy from KenPom.com. Who's he got, Arizona or Michigan? That's coming up. Stay with us.
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson.
The point with Utah State, where do they go now? Do they go with another mercenary coach that's going to be gone in 2 years if you're having any sort of success? Which, by the way, is fine.
Absolutely.
It is fine if that is your jam, which has been successful for Utah State. Like, other schools aren't coming to get your coaches if your teams are not playing well. And if you're a young and up-and-coming coach, you've got to know you can win in Logan. You can go to Logan, and it can be your ticket to a better job.
The business end of it, he has to pay $3.9 million buyout. That's a ton of money for Utah State. Like, that pays for the coach's first year and $2 million in NIL money, which is a lot at Utah State.
Well, hey, Mason Foslev, go buy a house, bro.
Yeah, but honestly, like, it's going to allow you to keep your top player and hire your next coach.
Catch Jake and Ben weekdays from 10 to noon on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
So, PK, did we get to the bottom of it or not? Are you rooting for Arizona just to put some money in the pocket for Utah and BYU? A little sentimentality because Arizona hasn't won a title in 30 years, or for Michigan or Illinois because the Big Ten hasn't won in 25 years? Or UConn, they've won too much.
Well, there's a theory that you don't want the teams in your conference to be better than you, and is that going to evolve Arizona? Are they going to take it to even a higher level than what they were under Lute Olson? And if that's the case, then they could dominate, and that's going to be 1 or 2 L's for you, maybe in the conference tournament. So you do that, or you can say, well, man, it represents the conference. I think your point being that the conferences are so fragmented now that I don't know that there's that extreme conference loyalty that there used to be. I used to have an internal conflict, for most of my adult life. I'd say from 22 on, I was a diehard Pac-10 fan, obviously with the Sun Devils, and to the extent Arizona. I know you're not supposed to root against them, but I looked at it. I didn't really grow up in the rivalry. It came to me much later in life, and when I got to California and around all the two Pac-12 10 schools, and so then Oregon buys its way to the top, right? And it seems so seedy. Well, Oregon actually was just ahead of its time. They were forerunners to what we have now. So I used to have a conflict. Do I want to see Oregon win? Because then when the playoff came, the Pac-10 hasn't had blah, blah, blah since blah, blah. And I got sick of being dumped on. So I maybe begrudgingly a little bit, I rooted for SC and Oregon, if they ever got there. Washington got there a couple years back. And so I wanted to see that just for the Pac-10 sake. Well, now that obviously blows up, and you got all my teams that I've just been following forever. They're scattered all over the place. My gosh, I got 2 of them in the ACC. What the crap is that? And I think, oh, that's ridiculous. But now I'm rooting them in the Big 12. Well, they're not in the ACC, but they're geographically in the ACC. So what the heck is that? Why? I have nothing for or against or even on my radar for UCF. Absolutely nothing.
I know.
Right? It doesn't make any sense to
line.
me. And so I'm supposed to root for that? I mean, that's ridiculous. You can't go any farther away from where I live than UCF. So maybe there just isn't that loyalty anymore because the conferences are scattered all over the place. And now we got Texas Tech. And I don't know if you saw it, Cody Campbell, well, I think he's mad that the Texas Tech Houston Big 12 game is going to be moved to Friday, and he didn't like it. And then Yormark responded with, well, Cody Campbell doesn't run the conference. And Campbell basically said, well, yeah, I do. I mean, he's kind of joking in that way. And so what do we got here conference-wise? What is there? All sorts of tradition and feelings are just gone. So that I'm rooting for Michigan just so literally so I could see Kyle Whittingham there dressed in Michigan gear. To me, that's going to be funny.
I would just tell Cody Campbell, if it's Friday and you're on an over-the-air network, you're going to get seen by so many people. If it's on Big Fox, which has aired a lot of Friday night games, and I think ABC should, and I think they will at some point, I don't know when, that's a big win, and he should embrace it. He's Mr. Embrace the Future. He needs to embrace that. Now, if they're going to end up on FS1 or even ESPN, which pulls better numbers, but that's not that big a platform. So I get if he wants to be a little cranky about that. So tell me where it's going to air. It's over the air. He's really got to cool his jets. That's a big win. Because you can have a chance to get 4 million people watching your game. And the Big 12 games are kind of off to the side over there.
Big deal. He'll pay somebody $4 million to come to Lubbock. That's where it's at.
He will. I actually just saw an NFL mock draft where David Bailey was the number 2 pick. And it's not what I usually see in those mock drafts. That was the highest I've seen him. But Texas Tech, get it done. We'll see where where David Bailey goes.
Right, because they have a great English department, and so he went there to further his interest in English and literature. That's why he went there this past season. Come on, what a joke.
Ken Pomeroy joins us from KenPom.com right after the break. Who's he got, Arizona or Michigan? Who's going to win it all? We'll talk with him next. Stay with us.
Hey, sweetie, your mother showed me this Carvana thing for selling the car. I'm going to give it a try. Wish me luck. Me again. I put in the license plate. It gave me an offer. Unbelievable. Okay, I accepted the offer. They're picking it up Tuesday from the driveway. I haven't even left my chair. It's done. The car's gone. I'm holding a check. Anyway, Carvana, give it a whirl. Love ya.
So good, you'll want to leave a voicemail about it. Sell your car today on Carvana. Pickup fees may apply.
The Honda Spring Event. Bring on the fun with a Honda Hybrid. Now's the time to check out the Honda CR-V Hybrid, Accord Hybrid, or Civic Hybrid from the 2025 Kelley Blue Book Best Performance Brand. For a limited time, well-qualified buyers can get a 4.49% APR on a 2026 Civic Hybrid, or a 2026 Accord Hybrid, or a 2.99% APR on a 2026 CR-V Hybrid.
See dealer for financing details. Based on 2025 Consumer Choice Awards from Kelley Blue Book. Visit kpp.com for more information.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. We're joined once again by Ken Pomeroy from KenPom.com. Ken, good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen.
For the people who know you, do you just get bombarded with Arizona or Michigan? Who's it going to be? Arizona or Michigan? What's going to happen? Arizona or Michigan?
Yeah, basically. Feels like, feels like we got, a national championship game on Saturday night, and not as much interest in the other games, certainly. And then whatever happens, whatever we get on Monday, it feels like people think it's going to be a foregone conclusion that the winner of Arizona, Michigan is going to win the game on Monday. And it's not exactly the case.
No, you never really know for sure, obviously. But what do you see out of that Arizona-Michigan game?
It's gonna be awesome. I mean, there's not, you think about like strengths and weaknesses for teams, and typically you can look at any team, no matter how good they are, and it's like, hey, there's the weakness, there's the strength. But Michigan and Arizona are basically like full of strengths, and their weaknesses are just like other strengths that are slightly weaker. I mean, we're obviously, I guess the one thing is, obviously Arizona doesn't take a lot of threes. That is something everybody should understand by now. Their last 2 games have been played against very soft, relative to tournament level performance, really soft interior defenses in Purdue and Arkansas. And they're not going to have that benefit against Michigan. I mean, they're going to have to earn their points. In particular, so Michigan has like the 3rd best 2-point defense in the country, which, they're playing Purdue and Arkansas are in like the 200s. So quite a difference there. Michigan doesn't foul that much, which is something that Arizona kind of depends on. So from the offensive side, it'll be a little more challenging for Arizona than it has been. But that said, like, Arizona's pretty darn good. So it's not like they're going to struggle in this situation. It's just not going to be quite as easy as it has been. So to me, I'm really interested to see how that side works out for them. And then can Arizona slow down Michigan, which, teams have slowed down Michigan this year. Not necessarily lately, but it has happened. So they're going to need to do that because Michigan, 3rd best 2-point defense, 2nd best 2-point offense. But Arizona has the 2nd best 2-point defense. So so they do have some ways to at least defend Michigan in the paint. And again, it'll be pretty vital for them to have success in doing that.
As BYU fans think, what do the Cougars have to do? Who do they have to model themselves after to build what they want to build and get where they want to get? And you look at these Arizona and Michigan teams, and Michigan's 1 in defense, Arizona's 2, and then at the offense end of the floor, Arizona's 4 and Michigan's 5 in offensive rating. So the answer then is be awesome at everything?
Yeah, the answer is be awesome at everything. That's all you have to do. Boom. You're winning national titles. I think what is also interesting just in terms of roster construction is that, neither team really is dependent on one player. Yaxel Lendeborg gets a lot of credit for Michigan, and deservedly so. Like, he's a really good player, but you look at like his offensive usage, and it's 21%, which the average player is 20%, and there's 5 players on the floor, so 20% is your average player. So he's basically like got average usage, and that's true for like Arizona as well. Like, they're not dependent on one guy. There's 4 or 5 or 6 guys that can all contribute offensively. Arizona in particular is feeling like a team that kind of like those Villanova teams that Jay Wright had before he retired, where you come into the tournament and be like, yeah, they don't really have that much NBA talent. And then all of a sudden you look 5 years later and like 6 guys from the roster are in the NBA. That's really the contrast with BYU. It's like you can go the path of trying to get the stud and giving him the ball on 35% of the possessions, and that will take you to certain places, but it's not really possible to contend for national titles if that's now the goal of BYU. It's not possible to contend for national titles under that paradigm.
And all the stuff that you do, KennyPalm.com, I'm wondering, do you ever just look at and say, well, this coach is better than that coach, so maybe that can skew some of the stuff that you're trying to put out?
Who are we possibly referring to here? Brad Underwood? No, not Brad Underwood. Probably Danny Hurley? Are we going Danny Hurley?
Well, whoever it might be, if you want to go Underwood in this case. Whoever, whatever, whenever. Yeah. It doesn't have to necessarily be this year.
Yeah. All right. Well, I was trying to maybe read too much into your question there, because I think in the other game, people are like there's like universal surprise among the public that Illinois is favored in that game. And I think some of it rests on the coaching matchup. And obviously, like, UConn has a history of amazing tournament success relative to regular season success. So people maybe peg that on the coach, but Brad Underwood's been a pretty amazing coach in his own right. So I guess to answer your question, yeah, I mean, coaching is hard to measure, and I'm probably a little more skeptical than most that at this point in the season, coaching has a major difference. Just because you're kind of, self-selecting at this point. Like the teams that get this far, presumably they're doing it in part because their coach and coaching staff, they know what they're doing. I think before the season, it's a little different. There's certainly you can find guys who like ultimately, like, your season performance is the talent you bring in, which is the most important thing, and then how well a coach can mold that group into a functioning team and get the most out of it. And so there definitely are coaches that you see time and time again that have advantages in the latter part, and there's coaches that have advantages in the former part, and the best coaches are the ones that can do both. But at this point in the season, I don't think it's something that's too big a deal.
I'm curious with the way Duke has gone out in the tournament the last couple of years, and they have done a great job of getting multiple young pros in the top of the class, and they play a lot of freshmen, and there are coaches who will say, get old, stay old, and there's a lot of them, but maybe they don't have access to those elite freshmen, so they don't have to make the decision Duke makes. Do you think the fact that they've blown these big leads in they've lost 4 games going back to last year's tournament, and they've blown double-digit leads in all of them, do you attribute that to youth, or is that attributed to something else, or is that just the nature of college basketball and crazy things happen?
Yeah, I think it's crazy things happen and youth, like some mix of that. The youth, it's kind of what makes college basketball great. I don't recall seeing a play like well, I shouldn't say that. I was going to say I don't recall seeing a play like that, in a crucial NBA game. But I guess there's we can fall back on J.R. Smith or whatever a few years ago, and people were replaying the I don't know what it is now, 25-year-old Michael Ruffin highlight where he tosses the ball in the air before the game is over, and it's like Wizards Raptors or something. The Raptors won that game. It comes down and the Raptors sink a 3 to win the game, or send it to overtime or something. But for the most part, you don't see what happened at the end of that Kentucky or Connecticut Duke game happen with more experienced players, I guess, is the general statement there. I mean, Duke was, for whatever reason, trying to advance the ball in a situation where they didn't really need to advance the ball. And you would think a more experienced team would not do that. So yeah, I think there's a little bit of the youth factor involved there. That's part of the deal you make. And really, at this point, I mean, how many teams are winning with this kind of Duke system of going after the elite freshmen and pairing them up with, previous classes of elite freshmen that didn't quite turn out to be so elite and stuck around, like the Caleb Fosters and the Isaiah Evans that they had. It seems like Duke's the only one. I mean, Calipari's still trying to do it at Arkansas and having some success, but not nearly as much as John Shire's had. So I don't know. I do think at some point, I mean, this is, it's going to be the narrative until Duke gets over the hump. But Duke, the next 5 years, Duke's going to get over the hump if they stay with this approach. I mean, they have Final Four national championship level teams. And I don't think John Shire's a bad coach by any means. I think he's quite good. But obviously snake bitten in these end of game situations in ways that makes you question his ability in those situations. But for the most part, I think, yeah, it is part of the deal. You just have young, inexperienced players, and they're going to occasionally do things like that. And on top of that, occasionally those things are going to come back to haunt you. But sometimes they aren't going to come back to haunt you. Sometimes they get away with it. And sometimes you're just going to win games by 15 or 20 points, which is probably what Duke should have done in that game, given how things were going for the first 30 minutes of it.
All right, Ken, if DJ had asked you the question about the coaches, would you have read more into it? Was it just the fact that I asked the question and you don't really trust me?
No, it's actually the opposite, PK. Like, I just think you're a deeper thinker, and there's multiple levels to your questions that I need to consider, and so that's what I meant by that.
I can see that.
Yeah, exactly.
That was so good it totally derailed me. I had another question.
You jumped. Simple question.
You jumped. You totally derailed me with that.
Man.
All right. Here's one
so
for you, Ken.
Skeptical, Ken, and I view you as pure.
As pure? Okay, great. That's the first time I heard that.
Yeah, I know. Just take it and run with it, Ken. What the heck? All right.
Yeah.
In the esteemed vision of KenPom.com, obviously the Big Ten has got the best tournament record, 6 teams into the Sweet 16, 2 into the Final Four, blah, blah, blah. They're the Kings this year, but it was the SEC who did it last year, and I think 3 years ago was Big 12. Do you view one of these leagues as about to pull away, or is this a little crown best conference in college basketball that's just going to get passed around for this foreseeable future, given the nature of the sport and guys coming and going every year?
Yeah, I think it's pretty hard to predict from year to year. I mean, what we have is, so in college football, you think of the Power Four, and in college basketball, it's really the Power Five when you throw in the Big East. The Big East is not a mid-major, just put it that way. So, we have a Power Five, but then within the Power Five, we also have this own kind of structure that is fairly predictable in that the 3 conferences you mentioned are clearly better than the ACC and the Big East. And we saw this start to happen last year, and continued to this season. And so, I don't know that there's necessarily any picking among those 3. There's any obvious top dog going forward. Maybe slight advantage to the SEC Big Ten over the Big 12, just due to resources, TV money, whatnot. So maybe slight advantage there, but overall, the safest thing to say is that those 3 conferences are going to be the best leagues in the sport for the foreseeable future, which that part has been unusual. I mean, the Big 12 was the top dog in my ratings for, a decade leading up to this period. But prior to that, you look in history, and some years, the ACC would be number 1, or the SEC would have a couple of nice years. The Big East would be there. And I think the days of the ACC and the Big East are probably gone. The ACC has had to expand into, with teams that aren't necessarily ever going to be basketball powers, whereas at least the Big 12 and the SEC and the Big 10 have expanded into teams that, can be basketball powers, like Arizona in the Big 12 or UCLA in the Big 10 or whatever. So, I think that's the direction we're headed.
Do you think that have we seen maybe a restoration of the big man, the level of importance of the big man in the college game?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's definitely still room for the guy who doesn't shoot threes and plays maybe a more traditional, I don't know if post-up game is the right word, but certainly going through the post or going through the paint is certainly more possible than, I don't know, than it has been, but it's still possible. Let's put it that way. I mean, that, the trend in college has been a little behind the trend in the NBA just due to talent availability, but compared to 10, 15 years ago, most teams have 4s and 5s that have some sort of perimeter games. But it's not necessary, and we've seen teams over the years, and including this year, have success in terms of guys who cannot necessarily shoot the 3 or don't shoot it a lot, have success. And so, you see that even with the Arizona and Michigan, UConn. I mean, all these Terrace Reed at UConn. I mean, he's more of a traditional bruising big man. Moses Malone vibes there for the old heads out there. Guy that rebounds and gets buckets to the rim. You know, Michigan has a Day Mara who is, I mean, a pretty creative player when it comes down to it. I mean, he's definitely like, he's not a guy who shoots threes, but he is a guy who can pass like a point guard. So in that sense, he is skilled. And I think that's sort of the key, is that these modern big men, even those who can't shoot, are just tremendously more skilled than big men of 25 years ago. And that's why, ultimately, why I wave the banner for the game being, you know, better than it's ever been. There's just so much more skill on the court than there used to be.
Utah State has a new basketball coach. What was your opinion of that hire? What was your surprise level that left Northern Iowa after 2.5 decades?
Yeah, there was some surprise there. I did not see that name coming. Man, it's an interesting hire because on the one hand, yeah, sure, like fits the MO, what Utah State has done, you know, going after mid-major head coaches. On the other hand, they've, you know, skewed towards more up-and-coming head coaches, and now we're going with like an established guy who like he's had a fine track record at Northern Iowa, but it hasn't been like off the charts, you know. I mean, I think like 5 tournament appearances in 20 years, and like it's at Northern Iowa. You're not going to go to the tournament every year, but had some ups and downs there. You know, obviously got to the tournament this year in a somewhat surprise run in their conference tournament. But yeah, I'm of all their hires, I feel like this is the one I'm least excited about. It's not to say it won't work out. He's obviously been successful. It's just he hasn't been that successful, guys, if I'm being honest. So I am slightly concerned about how this might turn out. On top of that, at least this past season, played at a very slow pace. So it's like not necessarily the most interesting style. It could be, you know, a lot of low scoring games up there at Logan next season. So if you're going to play that style, you better have some success. Otherwise, it could be a little rough. So I don't know. I'm sounding a little pessimistic here, but I was surprised they went in that direction.
Ken, we will leave it right there. We appreciate it as always. So who do you have winning it all just on the way out the door?
I'm gonna go Michigan. I'd love to spring some sort of Cinderella pick. I got a little soft spot for Illinois. Nobody's really thinking about them, and I do think it'll be a Michigan-Illinois final, a celebration of the Big Ten. Yes, a celebration of the Big Ten ending its 26-year streak without winning a title, doing so in the heart of Big Ten country in Indianapolis. That's what I foresee, and we'll see how it goes. But really, I mean, should be 2 excellent games on Saturday, 2 competitive games. So hopefully a fitting conclusion to a season where, you know, we've had a bunch of really good teams at the top of college basketball.
Ken, we appreciate the time as always. Enjoy the Final Four. Thanks for joining us.
All right. Thanks for having me on, guys. Appreciate it.
He's Ken Pomeroy. The website is kenpom.com, one of the top college basketball websites, and he's had Arizona and Michigan at or near the top all year long, and here they are playing in the national semifinals in there. 2 of the top 5 offensively, and he's got them as 1 and 2 defensively. So this is it. Best on best. No excuses, PK. Let's go.
Go Wolverines.
There you go. All right, DJ and PK, when we come back, everything you missed in this show, we will get you up to date. A surprising result from the Sacramento Kings. New hope for the Utah Jazz in the race to the bottom. We'll get to that next. Stay with us.
Just a bunch of guys sitting around and talking sports. This is Scotty G and friends.
Tony Jones from The Athletic. When you get blown out at home by a team that lost 16 in a row, I applaud that lack of effort. That was impressive by the Jazz.
The length that the Jazz are going to pull this off and to make sure that they keep that pick, I got to say, this is the best front office in the league at this point. You know, I'm all in. Because they're going to keep their pick, all right? They're going to get a top 5 pick. Listen, you ready for me to get wild on here?
Let's go.
I'm going to get wild on this show.
Let's do it.
If the Utah Jazz get AJ DeVance, they're winning an NBA championship within 3 years.
Lloyd, you rolling on that? Lloyd's got
Lloyd, you got that?
Wow.
Catch Scotty G and friends weekdays from noon to 3 on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Make game day yours. Tickets, food and drinks, stats, and streaming. Everything you need is in the Utah Mammoth app. Download today and make game night easy. Download on both Android and iPhone. Just top.
I sold my car in Carvana last night.
Well, that's cool.
No, you don't understand. It went perfectly. Real offer, down to the penny. They're picking it up tomorrow. Nothing went wrong.
So, what's the problem?
That is the problem. Nothing in my life goes as smoothly. I'm waiting for the catch.
Maybe there's no catch.
That's exactly what a catch would want me to think.
Wow, you need to relax.
I need to knock on wood. Do we have wood? Is this table wood?
I think it's laminate.
Okay, yeah, that's good. That's close enough.
Car selling without a catch. Sell your car today on Carvana. Pickup fees may apply.
The Slacker Radio Headlines brought to you by Trajan Wealth. Call Trajan Wealth today, your local trusted financial fiduciary. Call them at 801-210-6800 or visit their website at TrajanWealth.com. Many things have happened in the last 24 hours, PK, but I think if there's one thing Jazz fans are a little surprised at as they wake up this morning, it's that the Sacramento Kings picked up another win. Number 20 on the year. The Jazz are on 21 wins, and if you're thinking, wow, the lottery odds could change. Maybe the Jazz could have one of the 4 worst records in the NBA. Well, it is certainly in play after the Kings picked up the win in Toronto, 123-115. Look out. Here comes Sacramento.
Yeah, Sacramento with their late season surge has been impressive. We'll see what that gets them. And we'll see what it gets the Jazz as their surge has gone the other way. And they continue to lose. And they make it competitive. Yeah, the Denver game was competitive again. Man, if they could just face Denver in the playoffs, they can give them 4 competitive games. And maybe we'll see that next season because they've played them competitively each and every time this year. And I just don't know what to make of it, but I'm rooting for it to have the better odds than what you have now. One spot, does it make a difference? Who knows? I think that the Jazz are due good luck. I really believe that when it comes to the lottery. I think the balls are going to bounce their way. And come the morning of where did I get that? The morning of May 11th is going to be a beautiful morning on the David James and the Other Guys show. I think that's what it should have been named all along. It should have been David James and the Other Guy. I think that really just sums up who we are. But they wanted it because fortunately my initials rhyme with your initials, so we went in that direction, and that's kind of cool. But really still everybody knows it's David James and the Other Guy. And that morning is going to be special. It is going to be celebratory. We have to set it up because I think it's the 10th, right? And so after the show, we got to plan the party for the morning of the 11th. Somebody's got to bring the hats. You got to bring the little kazoos. We got to bring the drink. We got to bring some, maybe cake is too early. What could we have? Cinnamon rolls, maybe?
Ooh, look out.
Homemade cinnamon rolls. Yeah. Because we're going to be celebrating that morning.
Best case scenario for the Jazz, they get the number 1 pick. They take A.J. Debonsa, or best case scenario, they draft 3. They take Boozer. Debonsa goes to Sacramento or Washington 1. The Kings change coaches 3 times in 3 years and keep spinning their wheels. Washington just keeps staggering along like they're staggering along, and A.J. wants out, and they end up with 2 of the top 3 players in the long run. How greedy do you want to get, PK? What scenario would you like to dream up?
Well, I just want Debonsa in Jazz, whatever their colors are today. I want that. I want him in that unit. I want him to stay local. And he will just blow this town upside down, man, if he's here. It'll just be crazy. Ute fans will soon come aboard, and they'll be Debonsa fans because he's got that, hey, I'm one of you type guys, even though I'm this basketball budding superstar. He really is a humble kid, and to watch him grow here locally would just be incredible. And plus, we know Ryan Smith, he's tampering with the NBA somehow with Debonsa. I'm not sure how Gottlieb came up with that story, but nevertheless, that would just be great. And Debonsa sitting on the floor, and if you have 2 aces, you're halfway there to an undisputed winning hand.
DeBonsa and Ace Bailey together would be an awesome combination. It's a little too much to dream about, especially if they're playing alongside a bunch of 7-footers. I mean, that is a positional size, as general managers like to say. That would be awesome. they'd be so big and so athletic. We'll see if it breaks their way. But Sacramento does seem to be opening door to better odds, completely eliminates the chance of drafting 8th, really minimizes the chances of drafting 7th. So you're probably looking at a top 6 pick at that point. Who do you like? PK's like what?
Top one. I'm going to speak it into existence. I thought it would happen last year, but it's going to happen this year. And I think that I would rather have Ace Bailey over Cooper Flagg. So I'm going to be right, but I'm just going to be right a year later.
See, there you go. There you go. So the Kings loss is the big story. The Jazz lose to the Denver Nuggets, not particularly surprising. You did put up a question on our Facebook page. Got a little reaction. We'll get to this about which of these young players can be with the Jazz going forward. And I think that they've shown quite a bit. Several guys have shown quite a bit here. And the fact that a lot of them still have inexpensive years left on their rookie contracts is going to help for a team that's going to be up against some salary cap limitations here pretty quickly and is going to want flexibility to bring in a player or two. I think that's where some of these young guys are going to go away. I think there's going to be some kind of deal for a veteran who can handle the ball. Maybe there'll be a couple of those deals. Which team? What does that team need? Which of the Jazz young guys do they really like and who do they want? I can't begin to guess. You had a nice ranking. I thought it was a pretty good starting place. You went with the bigger players who are usually hard to get a hold of and said, Filipowski, but you liked Collier, and you were leaving Kessler and Keontae out. Those two kind of figuring that those two are locked in, right? And they haven't been playing lately, which is the question. Who's been playing lately that you think is locked in?
Yeah, and also Ace Bailey, too.
Yeah, Bailey's been playing. He'd be the number one.
And I like the Lion King, man. I'm going with the Lion King with his toughness.
Going forward.
I mean, watch him roar. What's his name?
Conchar. I think that the thing about him, and Will said this in a postgame, it's probably a week ago now, maybe a little more, that he didn't play for a while, and then when they went to him, he was ready. And so if you're going to be guy 11, 12, 13 on the roster.
Savvy.
That's what you've got to be, because you're not going to play all the time. You're certainly not going to play a lot, but on the nights you are needed because somebody's hurt or somebody's resting or it's a back-to-back or whatever, you got to be ready to go when you're called on, even if you haven't played in the previous 3 games. And so him showing that is probably him checking one more box. That'll keep him around.
And then he comes in off the bench with a lion. Whoa. Oh, man. A lion? I mean, I think that was part of Favors' problem, you know. He needed a lion there. He had Jesus. And that's nice in the things. It's more about basketball. There are things that are more important than basketball when it comes to tats. I understand that. But a lion, that's sort of ferocious. Have you ever gone nose to nose with a lion?
As a matter of fact, I have not. But thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, I think the closest I've come is being in a singular one-on-one conversation with Scott Mitchell.
Did you ever go to that, when you lived down in L.A., was it still open, that Lion Country Safari thing down in Irvine, where you drive through and then the animals are roaming around or caged in a bigger area than a zoo? You ever do that thing?
I went to Africa with only a bow and arrow.
Okay. All right. We talked hockey this morning. Yeah, I know, right? We talked hockey this morning. PK's like, yeah, I've had enough. Let's go. What kind of nonsense do you want? He's got a wide range of nonsense.
No, you've had enough. I haven't had enough.
Jay Stevens was on. Your takeaway from talking with Jay Stevens, does the Mammoth podcast here on KSL Sports. He's got a bunch of content. You can go to KSL Sports. You can find his YouTube page, and there's a ton of hockey there. He's of the opinion 92 points. That is the magic number. They're sitting on 82 with 8 games to go. So 5 wins or 4 wins and 2 overtime losses, whatever. He thinks 10 more points will get it done to get into that first wild card spot.
Yeah, I think that will get it done, and I think they will get it done. And I'm wondering to what level, if they play Anaheim, maybe they have a better shot at getting out of the first round. Listening to guys who know more about it than I do, it seems like it might be hard to get out of the first round, and everybody's been talking about getting to the playoff. Nobody's really been talking about winning the playoff, and Armstrong, who's been saying our best team isn't here yet, meaning some of the beefier dudes that they've drafted are working their way up through the system to get to the big club, I guess you could call it, in the next year or two. But it's important to get there, obviously, to get these younger guys who don't have the experience in the postseason. Some of them do, we know, and go from there. And maybe this time next year, we'll be talking about a little more optimism. How long can they stay in the postseason? Now, maybe they can surprise us this year. You don't want to rule anything out, particularly in this sport, which has sort of a baseball randomness to it as opposed to a basketball and a football. Football has a little bit if you have turnovers. Basketball, maybe shooting is off. But over a course of a 7-game series, it seems like the better team wins so much of the time. There's going to be exceptions, obviously. And I think that listening to Jay talk, and he knows more about it than I do, that they need to get beefier, and you got McBain and Krause there doing their thing, and they need some more size behind them. So they might not be set up to win in the postseason this year, but that would be a good advancement. And then you go from there, and then you build this thing into the next 2-3 years out and see how far they can go.
Yeah, I do wonder if Anaheim's the best matchup. That's who's currently sitting in first place in Pacific Division, who they would match up with if the playoffs started today. But even in the 7, 8, 9 games left, depending on the team, there's a chance for Edmonton to move into that spot. Now, Draisaitl hasn't been playing, and I am intrigued. We'll have to get into this maybe next week when we have Mike Fulton on. Would you rather play Edmonton with Draisaitl just being reintroduced and coming back, or maybe he's not back for the first couple games in the series? I'm not sure exactly where his health stands. They like to stay mysterious about that. Or would you rather face Anaheim? Because if Edmonton gets dialed in with their 2 stars, look out.
Yeah. Well, McDavid called the other division a pillow fight, meaning that it was soft. So he's there literally on the front line. And with that in mind, I'm thinking my mindset has been Anaheim the whole way.
Yeah, the pillow fight there's a chance, depending on if the Mammoth finish strong here, there's a chance that the top 8 teams that are going in the playoffs, the top 4 in points will all be from the Mammoth Central Division, right? And the other 4 will all be from the Pacific Division. Yeah. That's pretty unusual. It could work out that way depending on how the Mammoth finish. Certainly the top 3 are going to be from the Central Division. And then we talked Final Four with Ken Pomeroy from KenPom.com in the last segment. He thinks Michigan over Illinois in an all Big Ten final. And he was a little hesitant, a little thrown off by the Aggie hire. Not what he saw coming. Has a few doubts.
Arizona's going to be tough. I mean, maybe it's just because I've seen them so many times. Their size, the shot-making ability, guys come off the bench and can make shots. I'm going with Arizona, but a lot of it is just simply because of my familiarity with them, watching them play 10 to 15 times this past season.
Yeah, our part of the country, we see them more. I mean, Michigan was dominant and scaring people early. They had hit a couple potholes, and then they've been awesome again, which is actually the Arizona story, too. Arizona had that one bad week. Remember that one bad week they had? Yeah. Other than that, there's more people.
That's it.
All right. DJ and PK will take a break. When we come back, your feedback, what you've got to say about today's show, that's next. Stay with us. DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Question of the day. We've got multiples up. One of them, though, which of the young guys who played recently has impressed you, and what do you think the odds are they've cleared a path to join the team next year? Ben Anderson tweeting out late last night that it sounds like Bez Nbang will sign with the Jazz on another 10-day contract. That'll be his second, and that clears a path for him to join the team in the Summer League. We've been talking about the guys we watched for a couple years, PK. It will be interesting to see if someone who's just coming through here late in the year, afterthought and all that, maybe isn't an afterthought. Maybe they've played their way into something.
Well, I just mentioned the Lion King. You include him. He's not a 10-dayer, but are we talking about him too?
Right. I definitely think he's in the mix for next year. I think when you're that far down in the roster, you can only do so much. It's a numbers game, and we've both talked to plenty of ex-NBA players who've seen the numbers game go against them or go for them. There's an injury that clears a path for them to play even more. So I think he's definitely put himself in a good spot, but I think his future depends on what other moves they make and how many roster spots are left. We talked about the possibility of acquiring a veteran guard through a trade. Well, it doesn't necessarily 1-for-1 or 2-for-2. Do you give up one and you get two, and now you've lost a roster spot that these guys were battling for? Or do you give up two players and you get one, and that opens up a bonus spot for another guy to slide into? There's a lot of things that can happen. And as Jerry Sloan said, hey, the whole league's watching, man. There's 29 other teams. So for the guys who are free agents, which isn't most of them actually, but for anybody who is in that situation or maybe has a player option, could be go time. Maybe they get a call they love. You never know.
Well, yeah, but I also think in today's world, there's 350 colleges that are watching them.
You're right. Back to college. So feedback today. Classless Skip says, man, I love how we've transitioned from 3 years of Lauri Markkanen's getting traded because he's old and doesn't fit the timeline to, hey, what young players are getting traded. That is hilarious. I get that. I get why that entertains you, Classless Skip, but I completely agree with what PK said. Austin Ainge, if you're looking for a cliche, go with chip off the old block. If it improves the team, even if it seems wild and outlandish to you, if he's got confidence to improve the team, he might do something that the rest of us consider unpredictable. Didn't see that coming around the corner or whatever else. He'll just go and do it. He's not just going to stay in his lane and go for gradual improvement. He'll roll the dice.
No, I agree with you, obviously, and that's the point I made. So essentially I'm agreeing with myself, which is always a good way to go as far as that goes. Now, as the team is trying to improve, it has to, if you're looking through trades, you have to give up assets to get back assets. That's a big old duh, right? And right now, what they have is younger guys. Those are their tradable assets, assuming that they're looking at bookend 7-footers next season with Jackson and Markkanen, right? So that leaves you with the younger guys, whereas before, well, he didn't fit the timeline, and so he was your Jaren Jackson, essentially, for a couple of years, and he was good. He hit the ground. Interestingly, he hit the ground running that first year when he was playing with far more experienced guys on that team than he has been the last couple of years. So that may be something to factor in. Markkanen, is he one of these guys who can raise his game if he has better players around him? It would seem like he did that first year with the Jazz, and now going forward, he'll be back in that situation, and they'll be looking to win. They won't be looking to, well, these guys don't fit in the timeline anymore because the timeline is right now, and if you don't fit in the timeline, that means before, or maybe you were a little older, well, now it's reversed, and you're a little younger, so you're not quite ready, so we're looking for guys that we can bring in who are ready, and teams are looking to be in the situation that the Jazz were in, and they want younger guys to be able to grow. That's where we're at right now.
Saba says, Cody, for sure, I loved his development. And I get that. I think we're seeing more and more flashes, especially at the defensive end of the court. His athleticism is just, he's got the size and athleticism. That's why he's drafted where he was. So that, you see the flashes of that and what it could do. But when David Locke comes on and says, hey, there's some fool's gold mixed in these games, you're playing teams that, A, aren't into it, or you're playing teams that are into it, but on a given night they're not into it because they know they're going to win with a C-minus effort. And so what are we really seeing here? And I got to say that I think, while that applies to everybody, there's a couple players that applies to a little more. And somebody like Cody, who we'd all seen less from in that first year and a half, I do wonder how much of it is development and how much of it is just kind of the situation he finds himself in here in a lot of these games. However, if he keeps developing, because it's clear that some of it is him, if he keeps developing this summer, maybe a little bit of that becomes a moot point. And, he starts the season as a depth piece, but has a chance to play his way into something more next year. Because he has improved year to year. How much he's improved is hard to gauge given what we're seeing in some of these games.
Yeah, before we get out of here, I want to add to that. Okay, I get what you're saying, but he doesn't think that. He doesn't think, well, I'm doing it against scrubs. He's thinking he's improving.
He's going hard. Yep. Well, and he is. He is. The question in my mind is, how much is he improving? And when the games are much bigger and the stages are much bigger
today than it was this time last year, and that will lead to him being better when he gets the opportunity to play it against better people because he believes in himself more.
And even if he's a little bit buried based on whatever they do this summer, kind of hang in there. Things have a way of shaking out, and maybe getting this chance to play and getting a little taste of success at whatever level it's at. We can all debate that. Maybe that, you need a little positive feedback to keep working. You need a little something once in a while, and so maybe this has been really good for him in that regard.
Right.
All right, we're all done. DJ and PK moving over to make way for Jake and Ben. They're coming up next right here on The Zone.
I sold my car in Carvana last night.
Well, that's cool.
No, you don't understand. It went perfectly. Real offer, down to the penny. They're picking it up tomorrow. Nothing went wrong.
So, what's the problem?
That is the problem. Nothing in my life goes as smoothly. I'm waiting for the catch.
Maybe there's no catch.
That's exactly what a catch would want me to think.
Wow, you need to relax.
I need to knock on wood. Do we have wood? Is this table wood?
I think it's laminate.
Okay, yeah, that's good. That's close enough.
Car selling without a catch. Sell your car today on Carvana. Pickup fees may apply.